The weight of the apothecary jar on my workbench is 3 pounds 7 ounces, its contents a jumbled mess of dried herbs and powders. The faint scent of lavender wafts up from it as I carefully pour some into a small pouch. Beside me lies a vial of clear liquid labeled Veronica's elixir, its maker unknown but rumored to be potent in treating the plague. What if, for instance, this elixir was indeed the key to halting the disease that has ravaged our land? Would it change everything we thought we knew about medicine and the role of doctors like myself? But what if, beyond curing ailments, I had also stumbled upon a secret to eternal life? What then would be my place in society as both healer and immortal? If you're listening to this to fall asleep, that's exactly why I make these. Drop a comment and tell me where you are and what time it is. I read every single one. The flickering torch on the wall casts eerie shadows across the room, illuminating the worn leather-bound books scattered about my workspace. The smell of last night's supper still clings to your cloak as you walk through the crowded streets of Ashwood. The market stalls are already set up for the day, and the vendors are busy arranging their wares amidst the hubbub of early morning chatter. You're on a mission to procure some fresh herbs for tonight's patients, and the scent of roasting bread wafts from the nearby bakery, making your stomach growl in anticipation. As you navigate through the throngs, you notice a small stone pedestal tucked away between two larger market stalls. The inscription on it reads, Urindor Thorn, Apothecary to King Edward II. You've seen Urindor's sign before. It's an old family crest with an image of a mortar and pestle in the center, but you're not sure why this particular pedestal is set up here. The market stalls are often pushed together haphazardly, making room for new vendors or extra customers. You sidestep a group of young apprentices juggling small bags of flour as they make their way to the nearby Baker's Guild, and your eyes adjust from the bright sunlight back into the shade of the market stalls. The air is thick with the smell of fresh bread, spices, and something else, possibly rose petals. You can't quite place it. As you ponder the meaning behind Urindor's pedestal, a gentle voice calls out to you, Good morrow. Are you seeking medicinal herbs for your patients? It belongs to an elderly woman with wisps of silver hair tucked under her cap. She's holding a small basket overflowing with fresh mint leaves and chamomile flowers. You take the opportunity to ask about Urindor's pedestal, hoping she might know more than you do. Ah, she says with a knowing smile, that's just an old tradition of ours in Ashwood. Anytime someone sets up their wares near our guild hall, and we have one nearby, don't you see? They must put out this little stone marker bearing the king's own crest as a mark of respect. You're not convinced by her explanation. There are plenty of market stalls without such markers after all. Still, it seems worth asking around to find more information about Urindor and his connection to the king. As you continue your conversation with the elderly woman, whose name is revealed to be Mistress Hilda, an experienced healer in her own right, she offers some valuable advice on how to acquire certain herbs without overpaying. You take note of a nearby merchant offering rare spices at what seems like exorbitant prices and mentally calculate whether you can afford those extra coins. Mistress Hilda hands you the basket with your chosen herbs, and as you pay her for them using silver pennies that clink against each other in her hand, she speaks about Urindor Thorn, A clever apothecary he was. Had a gift for mixing potions from all manner of plants. But be warned, his remedies can have unpredictable results. You nod politely, though you've heard such rumors before and still haven't seen it with your own eyes. With the herbs safely in hand, some dried leaves wrapped around each other, others tied to a small branch, you make your way through the crowded market stalls. You're not sure what specifically Mistress Hilda meant by unpredictable results, but considering how often patients bring in complaints about Urindor's concoctions, it might be worth investigating further. Eventually, you arrive at the apothecary shop itself, a small, cluttered space filled with jars upon jars of dried flowers and powders that seem to dance in the flickering candlelight. Behind the counter stands an unassuming figure, Urindor Thorn himself. It's hard to tell. He appears to be around 40 years old but has clearly aged quickly due to his profession. A faint scent of lavender wafts from behind him, and you notice a small pile of discarded cloth strips nearby. You recall Mistress Hilda mentioning something about unpredictable results in relation to Urindor's remedies. It seems he might have some difficulties with skin reactions or allergic responses, at least among his more sensitive patients. You ask about the inscription on the pedestal you saw earlier, and Urindor looks slightly discomfited before launching into an explanation that sounds suspiciously like what Mistress Hilda said, something about respect for the king's crest. You're not sure if he genuinely believes this or is simply deflecting your question. After a bit more conversation, some of which centers around Urindor's various remedies, such as his signature Dragon's Breath elixir, which apparently has an unpredictable effect on one's dreams, and soothing balm for skin irritations, rumored to cause temporary numbness in the affected areas, you decide it might be time to move along. As I bid farewell to Urindor's crowded apothecary, the scent of dried herbs and simmering potions clung to my cloak like an old friend. The vendor's parting gift, a small pouch containing a few choice vials for future consultations, weighed heavy in my pack. His wares were certainly intriguing, but I had little desire to test their efficacy on myself. The streets of Wisteria bustled with the evening market crowd, merchants hawking fresh produce and exotic spices, artisans displaying intricate silks and delicate glasswork. Amidst this vibrant tapestry, a sense of unease crept over me like a cold draft from the city's stone walls. I had a reputation to uphold as Wisteria's most respected physician, but recent events threatened to tarnish that reputation. Word had spread about my failure to cure Lady Harcourt's persistent fever. The noblewoman, once radiant and lively, now lay abed, her condition worsening by the day. Her family had grown increasingly dissatisfied with my treatments, and whispers began to circulate among the city's elite. Doctor Yelwys is no longer trustworthy. I knew that if Lady Harcourt passed on under my care, I would face severe consequences at best, a loss of influence, at worst, exile from Wisteria itself. Shaking off these foreboding thoughts, I navigated the winding streets toward the city's outskirts. Tonight, I had promised to attend an emergency gathering at the Guild of Surgeons' headquarters. A mysterious infection was said to be sweeping through one of the city's poorer quarters, and the guild sought my expertise in identifying its cause. Upon arrival, I found a group of concerned physicians huddled around a large wooden table. The atmosphere was tense, This new outbreak had already claimed several lives, and rumors hinted at dark forces spreading from beyond Wisteria's walls. Our host, Master Alistair, a gruff but fair-minded surgeon with a talent for precision, welcomed me warmly. As we discussed the symptoms of this mysterious affliction, I noticed an unusual presence hovering on the periphery. Brother Marcus, a young monk of considerable repute in his order. His calm demeanor and sharp mind had earned him respect among Wisteria's scholars. What drew him to our gathering? Brother Marcus, Master Alistair called out as we took seats around the table. We could use your insight on this affliction. Your order has access to ancient texts. Surely there are parallels between these symptoms and some long-forgotten malady. Marcus nodded thoughtfully. Indeed, I've studied similar cases within my order's archives. However, I fear we're merely scratching the surface of a far greater issue. He hesitated before continuing. We have reason to believe that this outbreak may be connected to more than just disease. It could be an early warning sign for something darker. Gasps and murmurs rippled through our little gathering, drawing my attention. The whispered conversations turned into urgent whispers as we all realized the gravity of Marcus's words. The city was on edge. Tensions simmered beneath the surface like a smoldering fire. I had long suspected that Wisteria's various factions were hiding secrets, and now it seemed this mysterious affliction might be merely the tip of an iceberg, one whose implications threatened to shake the very foundations of our society. What role would I play in unraveling these mysteries? As physician, as observer, or perhaps even something more? The flickering candles casting eerie shadows on the walls seemed to hint at answers hidden just beyond my grasp. I stood there, frozen in contemplation, the flickering candles casting an otherworldly glow on the walls of my humble abode. The air was heavy with the scent of old parchment and dust, a familiar comfort that had been my constant companion for nigh on 2 decades now. Yet tonight it seemed to whisper secrets I couldn't quite decipher. As a physician in this medieval town, I'd grown accustomed to the peculiarities of life within these stone walls. The stench of rotting garbage wafting from the nearby sewers, the mournful toll of the church bell signaling another soul lost to the darkness beyond our gates, all these were familiar cadences that had become as much a part of me as my own heartbeat. Oh, and yet, tonight felt different. Tonight, I couldn't shake off the feeling that something more was at play here than just the routine ailments and minor afflictions that filled my daily rounds. The weight of unspoken implications hung in the air like an unseen storm cloud, threatening to break upon us all with a ferocity none could truly comprehend. I took a deep breath, letting the familiar sense transport me back to more mundane concerns. Tomorrow's patients awaited, and I had preparations to attend to, poultices to prepare, medicines to gather from the nearby market, consultations to schedule. But even as my mind began to settle into its well-worn grooves, another thought insinuated itself into my thoughts. What if? What if these strange occurrences were not mere happenstance or local legend, but something more, a symptom of a deeper malaise that afflicted our very way of life? What if the whispers I'd heard from patients over the past few weeks, those enigmatic murmurs about a sickness in the blood and the shadow at the edge of town, were actually pointing to some underlying truth? The thought sent shivers down my spine. As a physician, I prided myself on being attuned to the subtle rhythms of human nature, but this felt like something beyond even the most skilled observer's purview. I tried to push aside these unsettling musings and focus instead on practicalities. Tomorrow would bring its own set of demands, from treating a local baker with suspected food poisoning to examining an elderly woman complaining of recurring fits. Tomorrow was always just around the corner in this town, ever present as the next full moon or another cycle of Lent. Still, I couldn't shake off the feeling that there were answers hidden somewhere within my grasp. Perhaps it was simply a matter of applying the right lens to these peculiar occurrences. An observation here, a hypothesis there. But what if? What if this sickness in the blood wasn't just metaphorical? The flickering candles seemed to mock me now, their shadows dancing like dark jesters on the walls. I felt the familiar tug of curiosity tugging at my shoulders, urging me toward some hidden truth. And so I made up my mind. Tonight would not be a night for rest or indulging in fanciful speculation. Tomorrow's duties could wait. This once, I'd allow myself an evening to follow the threads where they led, no matter how slender or uncertain. Without further thought, I began gathering candles from various corners of my abode and piling them into a makeshift lantern on my work table. The flame danced back to life as I lit it, casting a warm glow over the room. Shadows receded, revealing familiar contours that still seemed tinged with an air of mystery. I opened a nearby chest, filled with dusty scrolls and worn vellum pages containing notes from long-forgotten studies in alchemy and herbalism. Tonight would be for reviewing those texts anew. Perhaps I'd find some forgotten passage or analogy that might shed new light on these enigmatic occurrences. With an almost childlike excitement, I delved back into the world of theory, losing myself within pages yellowed by time and scented with dust. My eyes scanned lines of scribbled text as if devouring them whole. What was it this passage said about the connections between planetary alignments and human health? Could there be something to these ancient theories after all? Hours passed without my notice, lost in a sea of candlelight and pages turned by hand. Questions still lingered, but alongside them grew a sense of anticipation. Tomorrow might bring answers or at least clues toward unraveling this tangle. And so the night wore on, fueled by curiosity and illuminated only by the flickering light of candles that cast shadows with secrets too profound to be revealed in one short night. As you step out of your small stone cottage, the morning air greets you with a chill that seeps into your bones. You rub the sleep from your eyes and take in the familiar scene. The village square lies quiet, save for the occasional clucking chicken or chirping bird. The baker's oven stands dark, its brick exterior cold to the touch, but within, the sweet aroma of yesterday's bread still lingers. You make your way through the narrow streets, passing by the thatched roofs and half-timbered buildings, each one telling a story of its own. As you walk, the sound of hammering echoes from the blacksmith's forge, punctuated by his gruff voice as he yells at some errant apprentice to pay attention. Your first stop is the village market, where yesterday's bread would have been on sale. But today, instead of the usual assortment of fresh loaves, you notice a peculiar display. 3 baskets filled with what appears to be rancid bread, its browned crust cracked and crumbling. Next to it stands a large stone jar with a faded label that reads medicinal herbs. You raise an eyebrow, this is no ordinary market fare. You approach the vendor, a weathered woman named Mistress Agnes, who's haggling over prices with a local farmer. As you wait for her attention, your gaze wanders to the nearby stalls. Stacks of turnips and carrots, baskets overflowing with fresh greens, and an assortment of dried herbs tied into bunches. Mistress Agnes finally notices you, her eyes squinting in curiosity. Ah, young doctor. Good morning. What brings you here today? She gestures toward the rancid bread display. Fresh stock just arrived from our friend at the monastery. I'm told it's a new recipe for treating malaria. You frown slightly. That sounds suspiciously like an old wives' tale. As a medical practitioner, you know a thing or two about effective treatments for this deadly disease. But also, as one who values humility and open-mindedness in your profession, you've learned to approach such claims with caution. As you carefully inspect the bread's appearance, its texture is indeed odd, almost like old leather. Mistress Agnes leans in closer. It may not look appetizing now, she whispers conspiratorially, but trust me, this malaria bread has some unusual properties. She hands you a small loaf from one of the baskets, and as your fingers brush against its crust, a faint memory tickles at the back of your mind. A conversation with Brother Edwin, an herbalist at the nearby monastery. He mentioned experimenting with infusing medicinal herbs into various baked goods to create tonics for common ailments. Curiosity piqued, you break off a small piece from the loaf and bring it to your nose. The scent is unmistakable. Rancid bread indeed has its own unique aroma. As you ponder what exactly this concoction could be doing here, Mistress Agnes interrupts with a hasty explanation of how Brother Edwin assured her that this malaria bread would cure even the most stubborn cases. Your doubts resurface. Malaria's no trivial matter to play games with. You're about to politely decline and move on when an elderly couple catches your eye, watching you with interest from across the market. The woman points at Mistress Agnes' rancid bread display, whispering something in her husband's ear that makes him chuckle. Mistress Agnes notices them too and seems anxious to change the subject. Speaking of medicinal herbs, she says hastily, gesturing toward a nearby stall, that new apothecary vendor has some lovely dried chamomile for sale. I hear it does wonders for insomnia. As you continue on your rounds through the village, taking note of who's buying what and why, a minor disturbance begins. An apprentice from the local butcher shop is chasing after his escaped piglet, whose frantic squeals are drawing curious stares. Your day wears on like this: visits to homes with sniffles, advice dispensed over cups of ale at the tavern, hasty consultations on foot as you hurry between errands. The sounds and smells become almost overwhelming. Baking bread wafts from ovens, roasting meat from hearths. Fresh hay from the nearby farms carries a pungent scent that mingles with horse sweat. Eventually, it's time to return home for a quick repast before your evening rounds begin anew. You step back into your small cottage and breathe in the familiar scents. Simmering soup on the fire, the faint tang of last night's candles, the lingering hint of wood smoke from this morning's chores. In your mind's eye, you relive the day's encounters: Mistress Agnes' curious bread display, Brother Edwin's experiments with herbs, and those enigmatic whispers about malaria bread. Your thoughts wander like a stream through meandering hills. Is there truth to these claims? Or are they just another anecdote in this village of stories? As you sit down at your small wooden table for lunch, A simple bowl of pottage with stale bread on the side, washed down by fresh ale from last night's cask. Your gaze drifts toward the large stone jar on its shelf. Its faded label reads, "Medicinal herbs again." Perhaps it's time to take another look inside that jar. As you approach the shelf, the scent of stale herbs wafts up to greet you. The jar's wooden lid is slightly ajar, and you can see the faint outline of several dried plants inside. You reach for it, your fingers brushing against the rough stone rim as you lift the lid further. A puff of dusty air escapes, carrying with it the whispers of forgotten remedies and dubious experiments. Your eyes scan the contents. Strands of dried wormwood, clumps of spongy horseradish root, a few wisps of what appears to be lavender, all jumbled together in an unremarkable mess. You recall your mentor's words on the importance of presentation and labeling. The good apothecary, he'd said, must not only concoct effective remedies but also display them attractively. Your own jar looks more like a chaotic afterthought than a carefully curated collection. Your gaze lingers on a peculiar mixture at the bottom, a tangle of what might be pennyroyal and yarrow. You vaguely remember reading about these herbs in one of your texts, their supposed antiseptic properties, their uses in warding off fever. Your fingers reach for it, hesitating as you wonder if this is indeed medicinal or merely some other concoction. A knock at the door interrupts your reverie. It's Thomas, the local baker, bearing a large wicker basket filled with an assortment of loaves, fresh bread still warm from his oven. You exchange pleasantries, and he mentions that a group of travelers has arrived in town, seeking shelter for the night. As you thank him and take the basket, your mind begins to wander toward their needs, perhaps some herbal remedies to alleviate travelers' fatigue or soothe sore muscles. But first, there's the matter at hand, this rancid bread on your own table, which has been sitting out since last evening. The ale from last night's cask still lingers in its wooden keg, but its potency is waning. You set Thomas down with a friendly smile and ask him about his batch of fresh loaves. "Ah," he says, beaming, "I added an extra pinch of salt to counter the damp weather." You listen intently as he expounds on the virtues of proper yeast management and drying techniques, your thoughts drifting back to that dusty jar. You can almost hear the echo of your mentor's words. A good apothecary must not only concoct effective remedies but also display them attractively. But what, you ask me now? What of these wily herbs? Are they truly medicinal or merely? Thomas has finished his tale and is asking about a possible order for bread and other provisions when the door opens again, this time admitting Alara, your apprentice's mother, with a worried look etched on her face. "Ah," she says softly, "I'm so glad I found you. My son Edric's been complaining of feverish chills since yesterday afternoon. He says he remembers eating some bread from the baker's earlier today." Thomas frowns as Alara explains that they've tried everything, applying hot compresses, making him drink weak tea with lemon, but nothing seems to be working. You rub your chins thoughtfully. The pennyroyal and yarrow mixture at the bottom of your jar comes back into focus. Might it have some efficacy against malaria? Your doubts still linger yet. Perhaps this is an opportunity to put your theories to the test, or prove them utterly wrong. "Tell me," you ask Alara gently, "can I see Edric?" The weight of responsibility settles upon you as you watch her lead Alara's worried face out into the main room, and Thomas offers a sympathetic nod toward the bread basket. Your gaze drifts back to that unassuming jar on its shelf, medicinal herbs. A tangle of dried herbs lies within, their colors muted by dust. Their scent is faint but unmistakable. As you walk through the narrow alleys of medieval Ashby-de-la-Zouch, the scent of smoke and damp earth clings to your skin like a damp cloak. You've heard whispers about the forgotten convent on the outskirts of town, tucked away behind a crumbling stone wall. Rumors speak of secret gardens hidden from prying eyes, where nuns once tended to flowers that bloomed in every color under the sun. You push open the creaky gate and step into a courtyard overgrown with wild flowers and weeds. The air is heavy with the scent of decay, but amidst it, you catch whiffs of something sweeter, fresh-cut hay, perhaps, or the faint tang of lavender. You follow the fragrance to a small door hidden behind a tangle of vines. The door creaks open with a hesitant push, revealing a narrow stairway that descends into darkness. You hesitate for a moment, then take your first step down. The air grows cooler and damper, heavy with the scent of damp stone and aged parchment. As you make your way deeper into the convent, the silence is almost palpable, no birds chirping outside, no rustle of fabric from within. At the bottom of the stairs, a corridor stretches out before you, lined with doorways to rooms that seem frozen in time. Dust coats every surface, and cobwebs cling to the corners like delicate lace. You step carefully through the dust, trying not to disturb the silence. Ahead of you, a faint glow emanates from a doorway on your right. As you approach, you see that it's an old scriptorium, shelves overflowing with tattered books and parchments, their pages yellowed by age. A wooden desk sits at the far end of the room, its surface scarred and worn smooth in places. On the wall opposite the desk hangs a large wooden crucifix, adorned with intricate carvings that seem to dance across its surface like vines on an ancient tree. Below it, a small shelf bears a single candle, not lit, but placed carefully among other artifacts. A silver pendant shaped like a dove, a sprig of dried rosemary, and a leather-bound journal filled with handwritten notes. You pick up the journal, feeling the worn cover beneath your fingers. The pages inside are yellowed and crackling with age, but as you turn them, you notice that they're not just any random thoughts. These entries chronicle a woman's daily life within these very walls decades ago. You wonder what her name was, what she wrote in this journal late at night after the other nuns had retired to their cells. As you flip through the pages, one entry catches your eye. Today, Sister Allie's brought us news of a shipment from Florence. We shall have new herbs and spices for our kitchens soon. You realize that this convent was once part of a larger network of monasteries and nunneries across Europe, exchanging knowledge and goods like letters between friends. You set the journal back on its shelf, running your fingers over the carvings on the crucifix. The wood feels cool to the touch, almost damp, as if it's been exposed to water at some point in its history. As you step closer to examine it more closely, a faint noise catches your ear, footsteps echoing down from above. You freeze, wondering who or what might be stirring within these forgotten walls. But before you can take another breath, the sound ceases, an unsettling pause that leaves only silence behind. You're left standing in front of this ancient crucifix, surrounded by dust and shadows, waiting for something to emerge from the darkness above. It's possible that no one has visited this place, since those early nuns tended their gardens and studied scripture beneath its roof. But now, with you here, a small disturbance ripples through the stillness, like when a stone skips across a pond, sending concentric circles of water rippling outward into the depths below. In this quiet reverie, as dust motes dance in the faint light filtering from above, it's almost easy to imagine Sister Allie's moving softly along these corridors, collecting herbs for tonight's dinner or writing notes by candlelight. And yet, you sense that there's more to this place than simple neglect. Perhaps some part of its original purpose lingers within these walls, even now, when most people would dismiss it as an abandoned relic from another era. Maybe the very air contains whispers of what once was, whispered confessions in dark corridors, laughter around candlelit tables, or late-night prayers under starry skies outside the cloister. You continue to stand there, suspended between the past and present, a moment frozen like a drop of water clinging to a window pane waiting for something. As I stand there, time seems to warp and bend around me, like the distorted reflection on a polished surface. The air is heavy with the scent of old parchment and dust, carrying whispers from centuries past. I feel the weight of forgotten memories bearing down upon me, as if the very stones themselves hold secrets they dare not reveal. A faint chill runs down my spine as I recall the countless nights spent within these cloistered walls, listening to tales of lives lived in shadows, whispered confessions, half-truths and fabrications woven into a tapestry of mystery. The flickering flames from candelabras cast eerie silhouettes on the stone floors, their gentle dance casting an otherworldly ambience over our clandestine gatherings. It was during one such late-night assembly that I first discovered the truth about our convent's unorthodox practices. Our abbess had called upon me to attend a special gathering in her chambers, a place where even the most curious of minds were cautioned not to tread. The night air vibrated with anticipation, and as we entered her private sanctum, our footsteps echoed through an atmosphere thick with expectation. There, surrounded by shadows cast from the torches that lined the walls, I encountered individuals whose names had long been whispered in hushed tones. The apothecary's apprentice accused of dabbling in dark magic, a novice monk rumored to possess visions of the divine, and even our own abbess herself, her eyes aglow with secrets known only to those within this inner circle. The air was heavy with an unspoken understanding as they spoke among themselves, exchanging glances that conveyed volumes. It was then I realized that this convent's existence hid a truth far more sinister than its strict adherence to monastic life would suggest. It concealed the pursuit of forbidden knowledge, secrets that defied both church doctrine and the laws of nature. Our abbess stood tall, her eyes fixed upon me as she began to speak in hushed tones. "Brother," she whispered, "tonight we share with you a secret our order has kept hidden for centuries. A truth revealed only to those who have proven worthy." As I listened, transfixed by the shadows dancing across their faces, they spoke of an ancient text rumored to hold the key to life and death itself. This forbidden tome, known as the Black Codex, was said to contain knowledge that had once been wielded by a secret society of wise men, individuals who, in the pursuit of ultimate power, delved into the darkest recesses of human understanding. Their words echoed through my mind like a cold wind. "This text is not merely a collection of spells and incantations," they warned. It holds the secrets to manipulating life itself. And those who dare wield its power will be forever changed, their souls bound by an unseen force. I remember feeling both repulsion and fascination as I listened, my mind reeling with questions. What manner of beings would seek such a dark and unfathomable knowledge? Were they madmen driven by ambition or visionaries seeking to unlock the very fabric of existence? The shadows seemed to grow longer and darker that night, as if mirroring the depths we had plumbed within ourselves. We knew then that our convent's veil of innocence was but a thin disguise, hiding an ancient and abiding quest for ultimate power. And now, suspended between past and present, I recall those words spoken in hushed tones. This text is not merely a collection. It holds the secrets to manipulating life itself. The echoes seem to resound through my being as I ponder what lies ahead. Will I be one of those chosen few who dare tread this treacherous path? Or will I remain suspended, trapped between worlds, forever bound by forgotten memories? In that moment, time stands still. As you stand frozen, suspended between worlds, a faint rustling sound catches your attention. The creaking of leather on wood echoes through the stillness, growing louder with each passing moment. You turn to see Brother Edwin, our humble apothecary, emerging from the kitchen area, his worn wooden staff slung over one shoulder. He moves slowly, as if feeling his way through a dark room, despite the faint light filtering in from the narrow windows high above. His eyes are narrowed, scanning the space with an air of quiet concentration. The soft rustling grows louder still. It's the sound of parchment being smoothed and folded into neat packets. You watch him approach you, his hands moving with practiced ease as he works. He stops beside you, his breath misting in the chill morning air. His gaze meets yours for a brief instant before shifting to the collection of curious objects on the nearby workbench. Dusty jars filled with wisps of dried herbs, wooden vials holding tiny amounts of oil or water, and various scraps of parchment pinned down beneath stones. He says softly, "You're here." I thought I heard footsteps. You nod, still feeling a touch disconnected from the world around you, as if observing everything through a thin veil of fog. What are those? You point to the neatly folded packets on his workbench. Brother Edwin's hands pause mid-motion before he begins arranging them into neat stacks. Those. Yes. Those are my special blends for this week's patients. He gestures towards you with one hand while continuing to work. I've been experimenting with a new combination of herbs, chamomile and lavender. I think it is, though I'm not quite sure if it'll have the desired effect yet. You watch as he carefully labels each packet with his own personal notation system, consisting of cryptic symbols scribbled onto scraps of parchment. What's that one, you ask, pointing to a particularly elaborate symbol. Brother Edwin sets down his work and leans in closer, peering over your shoulder at the notation on the packet. His voice drops into a conspiratorial whisper. That's my bleeding heart blend for delicate situations. You raise an eyebrow at this enigmatic label. As you watch him pack away his work and begin rearranging items on the shelf with the precision of someone reorganizing a library, your thoughts drift back to your own predicament. Will I be one of those chosen few who dare tread this treacherous path? Or will I remain suspended, trapped between worlds, forever bound by forgotten memories? But for now, Brother Edwin's calm demeanor and methodical movements seem an oasis amidst the turmoil brewing within you. You turn back to him as he finishes putting away his work. I'm glad you're here, he says softly. Now that I've got my morning routine sorted out. He pauses, eyeing the scattered objects on your person, a dusty book tucked under one arm, and various oddities slung about in cloth pouches at your belt. Tell me, how was it? The market. You recall walking through the stalls yesterday afternoon, haggling over prices with vendors who seemed to take great pleasure in trying your patience. It was. Eventful, you say finally, not quite certain where to start. Brother Edwin nods understandingly as he leads you towards a wooden bench beneath one of the high windows. You sit down beside him, hands resting on knees while trying to gather thoughts. The stillness within is slowly being filled by memories from your journey, sounds and scents reawakened with each passing moment. You see, Brother Edwin begins, his voice calm but engaging as he leans back onto one elbow. I think I've discovered the source of this. A plague, if you will. He pauses for a sip of water from an earthenware jug on the nearby bench. The soft clinking is almost soothing in its familiarity. Of course, Brother Edwin continues once refreshed. It's merely a theory, one that requires further investigation before we can be certain. His words wander across your thoughts like autumn leaves rustling through bare branches, a gentle patter of ideas which slowly coalesce into something more substantial. As Edwin's words settled into my mind like leaves on still water, I couldn't help but feel a sense of trepidation wash over me. What was this theory he spoke of? And what did it mean for our understanding of the plague that had ravaged our city for so long? I pushed aside the lingering doubts and focused instead on the task at hand, tending to the patients who lay scattered about the crowded infirmary. The air reeked of sweat, blood, and desperation, but Edwin's words lingered in my mind like a whispered promise. As I made my rounds, I noticed that many of our patients seemed to be exhibiting symptoms unlike anything we'd seen before. Some had rashes on their skin that looked almost deliberate. Others complained of joint pain and fever, as if the very marrow of their bones was being consumed by some unseen force. I tried to brush it off as mere coincidence, but a nagging sense of unease persisted. What if Edwin's theory wasn't just idle speculation after all? Just then, a commotion broke out near the entrance of the infirmary. A hooded figure stumbled in, dressed from head to toe in tattered finery that seemed more suited for a traveling minstrel than a patient. Please, the figure begged, its voice barely above a whisper. You must help me. I've seen things. Terrible things. Edwin's eyes locked onto mine across the room, and for an instant our gazes shared a spark of understanding. We both knew that this stranger was no ordinary sufferer. The hooded individual pushed back their cowl, revealing a face twisted by pain and fear. But it wasn't just any face, it was the mask of a plague doctor, familiar yet somehow different. My mind reeled as I took in the sight before me. Two masks layered atop one another, each one bearing an uncanny resemblance to its predecessor. It was as if this person had donned multiple skins at once, like some sort of grotesque, macabre jest. Zedwin's theory began to take shape in my mind, a dark and foreboding hypothesis that threatened to upend everything we thought we knew about the plague. Without a word, he strode towards the hooded figure, his eyes scanning the multiple layers of mask as if searching for some hidden clue. I followed close behind, sensing that our patient held secrets far more sinister than mere mortal disease. "What's your name?" Edwin asked gruffly, as if demanding an answer from some reluctant informer. The stranger hesitated before speaking in a voice barely above a whisper. "I am known only as Hands, but I've seen the true face of death itself, and it wears two masks at once." As Hands spoke these words, his body began to convulse, each fit racking him with pained gasps. His multiple masks seemed to ripple like water on a summer's day, their surface distorting as if reflecting some unseen horror. I watched in growing unease as Edwin carefully peeled back the layers of mask, revealing beneath them all a countenance that defied comprehension. The face beneath was twisted into an expression of anguished recognition, as if Hands had finally laid eyes on some long-lost specter from his own troubled past. "We should leave him alone," I whispered to Edwin, sensing the gravity of what we were witnessing. "Whatever evil he carries may spread to us." Edwin's grip tightened around my arm. "This is it," he said softly, his voice barely audible above Hands' ragged gasps. "All the proof we need. We can't turn back now, not when the truth itself wears two masks at once." With those words hanging in the air like an unspoken promise of doom, our patient's convulsions grew more violent still, sending shockwaves through the infirmary that seemed to shatter all reason and logic. In this fleeting instant, I caught a glimpse of something beneath Edwin's surface, a glimmering reflection of his own darkest fears, reflected back at him like a mocking jest from some otherworldly realm. As I gazed deeper into Edwin's eyes, I felt the weight of his turmoil settle upon me like a shroud. His pupils dilated, and for an instant they seemed to suck in all light around them, leaving only an abyssal void where reason should have resided. The flickering candles on our station cast eerie shadows across his face, as if demons themselves danced within the recesses of his skull. I reached out a trembling hand, hesitating at the threshold of his fevered skin. A shiver ran down my spine, for in that fleeting moment I knew we were no longer doctors tending to the sick, but mere mortals confronting the abyss itself. My mind reeled as Edwin's gaze seemed to bore into mine, unearthing secrets hidden even from myself. "Edwin," I whispered, my voice barely audible over the thrumming of our own hearts. He blinked once, twice, and with each beat, his composure slowly rebuilt its precarious walls. His mask, a grotesque beaked visage designed to ward off disease, seemed an ill-conceived mockery in this moment, for it couldn't shield him from what lurked within. "Forgive me," he muttered, the words barely audible as he turned away from me, his shoulders sagging under the weight of some unseen burden. The faint scent of lavender and camphor wafted up from his clothes, an attempt to mask the stench of despair that clung to him like a bad omen. I knew then that Edwin was no longer just our esteemed physician. He had become something more, a vessel for the darkness itself. This knowledge shook me to my core, and I felt my own grip on reality begin to slip. How could this be? The man who had stood at the forefront of medicine in these benighted times now threatened to unravel all we held dear. The stillness that followed was oppressive, heavy with foreboding. The other infirmary attendants, huddled around a nearby brazier, trying to escape the chill that seemed to seep into every pore, exchanged nervous glances, as if sensing the turmoil brewing between us. Perhaps, I ventured hesitantly, we should let him rest. Edwin's eyes snapped back towards me, and for an instant our gazes locked in a silent understanding. He knew what I did not, that even in slumber he was not free from this curse, this plague of darkness that clung to his very being. No, he whispered finally, the word barely audible above the hushed murmur of the others. His eyes gleamed with an unnatural intensity as he took a step forward, as if drawn by some unseen force towards me. Or was it something else entirely? A presence lurking just beyond the flickering shadows that danced across our little infirmary's walls. Wait, I tried to caution him, reaching out once more with an unsteady hand. Edwin ignored my plea and pressed on, driven by some inner compulsion. His movements became erratic as if he stumbled through treacherous terrain. His mask creaked beneath the force of each step. In a sudden burst of speed, he rushed past me, bursting into the adjacent apothecary's chambers with an unsettling quietude. The room grew darker still, shrouded by shadows that deepened like fresh wounds on Edwin's troubled soul. It was as if I stood at the precipice of some great change, a moment from which nothing would ever be the same again. What secrets lay hidden within those apothecary shelves, waiting to unleash themselves upon this chaotic night? With an unnerving clarity, I comprehended what had transpired. Edwin's masks, two in one, according to his own cryptic design, were not just a shield against disease, they concealed far darker truths. He was no ordinary plague doctor, but rather a guardian of forbidden knowledge. I trembled at the realization that even as our order sought to heal this ravaged land, we had unwittingly unleashed an ancient evil into its midst, one that would soon consume us all. As I stood frozen in the threshold, my heart racing with foreboding, Edwin's muffled voice carried out of the apothecary on a sigh of defeat. The darkness seeped deeper still, like water claiming its victim. His final words echoed through our little infirmary, chilling me to my very marrow. I am but one plague doctor. Two masks now worn at once. Stone walls stood like sentinels around the village of Ashby-de-la-Zouch, their rough surfaces bearing witness to countless seasons come and gone. Within these ancient bounds, Sir Walter de Beauchamp, a knight with a reputation for valor in battle, had taken up residence at his manor house. His family's estate was known for its modest grandeur, not opulent enough to rival the great halls of nobility, but substantial enough to impress the local gentry. As you follow me through the narrow streets of Ashby-de-la-Zouch, notice how the villagers go about their daily business with a quiet reverence. They move deliberately, as if aware that every step, every gesture contributes to the fabric of community life. The air is heavy with the scent of baking bread wafting from the ovens at the local bakery. On this particular day, I find myself pondering Sir Walter's recent illness, a bout of what his physician described as bilious fever. The symptoms had been quite distressing, alternating bouts of chills and sweats, followed by an inexplicable aversion to even the most pungent herbs. His condition was so dire that he'd taken to wearing not one, but two medicinal masks at once, a copper-plated affair on his face and another fashioned from linen soaked in vinegar under his chin. As I meander through the village, the rustle of leaves beneath my feet serves as a reminder of the autumn season's gentle grasp. Golden light casts long shadows across the cobblestones, illuminating the dusty alleys between homes. Smoke drifts lazily from chimneys, carrying with it the promise of warmth and comfort within. Sir Walter de Beauchamp's condition has been on my mind for weeks now, not just because of his illness itself, but also due to an unsettling coincidence. You see, I've discovered that another patient in our village, a young woman named Alice, had fallen gravely ill under similar circumstances. Feverish chills followed by prolonged bouts of sweating and an inexplicable aversion to herbs. I recall the day Sir Walter arrived at my chambers, his face pale with worry. His physician, old Master Thomas, stood beside him, fidgeting nervously as he explained the situation. "Good sir," Master Thomas began, "our patient here has contracted a most unsettling condition." He cleared his throat before adding, "The symptoms are unlike anything I've seen in my years of practice." As we spoke, Sir Walter's gaze wandered about the room, from the intricate frescoes on the ceiling to the array of peculiar instruments hanging on the walls. His eyes lingered longest on a small, leather-bound book lying open on a nearby stool, its pages filled with handwritten notes and sketches. You might wonder what significance this book held for Sir Walter or his physician. Perhaps it was merely a distraction from their troubles, something to take their minds off the gravity of his illness. Whatever the reason, the sight of that small volume has stuck in my memory like an itch I've yet to scratch. As you stroll through Ashby-de-la-Zouch with me, observe how even the most mundane tasks seem imbued with a quiet significance here. The village baker expertly kneads dough while sharing stories of his wife's latest needlework. Nearby, old Master Edward tends to his garden, coaxing forth one final burst of color before winter sets in. I find myself pondering Sir Walter de Beauchamp's illness once more, wondering if there might be some connection between Alice's similar affliction and the peculiar circumstances surrounding both cases. Might it have something to do with a particular herb or potion they were exposed to? Or perhaps, as Master Thomas hinted at during their visit, there was another factor entirely, one related not so much to physical symptoms but rather to, let us say, the intricacies of human relationships within our community. As we continue on this meandering path through Ashby-de-la-Zouch's quiet streets, note how even the shadows grow longer with each passing moment. It is as if night itself has taken up residence among these stone buildings, softly claiming dominion over every corner and crevice. It was during one of those autumn afternoons, when Sir Walter de Beauchamp took a turn for the worse, that I received an unexpected visit from Master Thomas himself. We stood in my chambers, surrounded by the faint scent of herbs and the soft glow of candles, a peaceful backdrop for what would prove to be a most unsettling conversation. "Sir," he began, his voice low and measured, "I've been pondering our patient's condition, and I fear there may have been some miscommunication between us." He hesitated before continuing. "It seems Sir Walter de Beauchamp has been receiving rather unorthodox treatments from a local apothecary. Now, as you continue to walk alongside me through Ashby-de-la-Zouch, notice how the soft rustle of leaves beneath our feet creates an almost soothing melody, one that carries us effortlessly along this winding path. This particular apothecary was rumored to be quite unconventional. His shop stood at the edge of town, near where the old forest began its slow creep into human settlements. The sign above his door featured a rather unusual emblem: two crossed arrows surrounded by an intricate web of what appeared to be Latin phrases. Sir Walter's family had entrusted this apothecary with their care, a decision that now seems fraught with unintended consequences. It is as if we're witnessing some quiet, inner turmoil unfold among the residents of Ashby-de-la-Zouch, one which threatens to shake loose long-held assumptions and established routines. Night has claimed most of our village by now, casting deep shadows across every stone facade. Yet even in this twilight hour, there remains a sense of purpose, an unspoken understanding that each villager contributes their unique thread to the tapestry of community life. You've noticed I haven't mentioned Sir Walter de Beauchamp's illness for some time now. It is as if his condition has slipped quietly into the background, awaiting resolution like autumn leaves waiting for winter's arrival. But do not think this means our story will soon come to a close, only that we're taking a momentary step back from its unfolding drama. Night air carries a hint of dampness. Mist creeps in from nearby fields and forests, gently shrouding all it touches. Shadows cast by the few remaining torches appear almost alive now, as if stirring on their own accord. Our apothecary friend has offered some intriguing theories regarding Sir Walter's condition, ideas that border on the alchemical. He speaks of the dance between humors and how certain combinations can either heal or hasten one's demise. His words hang in the air like autumn leaves clinging to a tree branch, refusing to let go. Perhaps it is time for us to consider an alternative explanation for Alice's illness as well, not just that it shares similar symptoms with Sir Walter de Beauchamp, but also because of its own unique set of circumstances, her exposure to those same unorthodox treatments at the apothecary's shop. This quiet night air carries whispers from distant chimneys, a chorus of soft murmurs and occasional yips from passing dogs. Every now and then a stray horse whinnies in response, an unexpected burst of wildness within these stately stone walls. As our discussion meanders on, the hours slipping quietly into one another like autumn leaves, you might begin to wonder if there's more at play here than meets the eye. Is it merely coincidence that ties Alice and Sir Walter de Beauchamp together? Or is something else lurking just beneath the surface, a hidden thread waiting to be uncovered? For now, let us continue on this gentle stroll through Ashby-de-la-Zouch, taking in its tranquil sights and sounds as if witnessing them for the first time. As we stroll through Ashby-de-la-Zouch, the warm sunlight casting long shadows across the cobblestone streets, I find myself pondering the enigmatic Sir Walter de Beauchamp once again. What secrets lay hidden behind those piercing blue eyes and chiseled features? The whispers of his sudden disappearance have been circulating for months now, leaving many to speculate about the circumstances surrounding his vanishing act. We walk past the grand manor house that serves as our temporary residence, its imposing facade a testament to the wealth and influence of the Beauchamp family. I've had the privilege of treating several members of this esteemed clan over the years, but none have piqued my interest quite like Sir Walter. His reputation precedes him, a skilled knight, accomplished diplomat, and rumored ladies' man. As we continue our leisurely promenade, I notice a young apprentice hurrying towards us from the nearby market square. He's an eager lad named Thomas, who has been assisting me with various tasks around town. Upon catching up to us, he bows respectfully before approaching his master, that is, myself. Villager, Sir Walter de Beauchamp's belongings have arrived, he announces breathlessly, holding a small wooden chest adorned with intricate carvings of herbs and vines. They were delivered by the castle steward just now. I nod in acknowledgement, intrigued by this development. The contents within that chest might provide valuable insight into the mysterious disappearance of Sir Walter de Beauchamp. As we make our way back to my quarters, Thomas trails behind us with an air of curiosity. Once inside, I instruct Thomas to carefully unpack the chest while I pour 2 cups of ale from a nearby jugs. We sit down at a wooden table near the fireplace, where Thomas begins to rummage through the contents of the box. His eyes widen as he pulls out various items: a finely crafted dagger with an ornate silver hilt, a pair of supple leather gloves, and several small pouches containing strange powders and herbs. These must have been Sir Walter's personal effects, I remark thoughtfully, sipping my ale. Perhaps there are clues within these belongings that can shed light on his disappearance. Thomas carefully places each item onto the table, examining them with a mixture of fascination and trepidation. As he works, I begin to ponder the significance of each object in relation to Sir Walter's character. The dagger suggests an affinity for combat or dueling, perhaps even a rivalry with someone within the castle walls. Meanwhile, the supple gloves hint at his appreciation for fine craftsmanship. As we study the contents further, my eyes land on one peculiar item: a small vial filled with a glowing blue liquid that seems almost otherworldly. I frown in confusion, wondering what sort of concoction this might be, medicinal or perhaps something more sinister. Thomas notices my interest and leans closer to examine it himself. "Oh, I think I recognize some of these herbs," he says hesitantly. "Some are quite rare. Some might even have a connection to the mysterious plants found in the nearby forest." My ears perk up at this, for rumors had been circulating about strange occurrences within those woods, unexplained lights and shadows said to roam under cover of darkness. As I ponder these enigmatic happenings alongside Sir Walter's disappearance, an intriguing theory begins to take shape. "Thomas," I say with a hint of excitement, "it seems we have more questions than answers regarding our missing knight. However, perhaps there's one thread that ties everything together: the mysterious plants found in Ashby-de-la-Zouch forest." As I speak these words aloud, an unsettling feeling stirs within me, much like the wind rustling through dry leaves on a crisp autumn morning. Something about this disappearance feels off balance, as if we're merely scratching at the surface of a far more complex and sinister web. With Thomas by my side, I decide it's high time to investigate these whispers further. Together, we'll venture into the heart of Ashby-de-la-Zouch forest, seeking answers that may lead us down paths both unexpected and perilous. As you wander through the dense foliage of Ashby-de-la-Zouch forest, the scent of damp earth and decaying leaves fills your nostrils, while the soft rustle of small creatures scurrying through underbrush serves as a gentle accompaniment to your footsteps. The sunlight filtering through the canopy above casts dappled shadows on the forest floor, creating an ever-changing tapestry of light and darkness that seems almost otherworldly. Your guide, a grizzled old woodsman named Edwin, leads you along a narrow game trail, his eyes scanning the surroundings with a practiced air as he points out various landmarks. You notice how his worn leather boots make barely a sound on the soft earth, while your own footsteps seem to echo through the stillness like a faint drum beat. As you round a bend in the path, the trees thin out slightly and you catch sight of a small clearing up ahead. In its center stands an old stone building, partially overgrown with vines and moss, its roof a tumble of rusty tiles that seems almost as though it's been reclaimed by nature itself. Edwin gestures towards the structure, his voice low and measured. "This is where we're headed," he says. "The village elder told me about this place, said there was something here worth seeing." You approach the building cautiously, noticing how the air around you grows thick with an almost imperceptible scent of herbs and spices. The door creaks softly as Edwin pushes it open, revealing a dimly lit interior that seems to be shrouded in a warm, golden light. As your eyes adjust to the sudden change from bright sunlight to dim interior, you take in the curious arrangement within. A series of wooden shelves lines one wall, packed tightly with jars and pots filled with all manner of dried herbs, while a large stone sink dominates the opposite side of the room, its surface worn smooth by generations of use. A small hearth stands at the far end of the space, where a low fire crackles gently in a metal brazier. The flames cast flickering shadows on the walls as they dance and twist in the draft from a nearby window. Your gaze wanders back to Edwin, who's now examining one of the shelves with an air of quiet reverence. He reaches out to touch a small wooden box adorned with intricate carvings, his fingers tracing the patterns with a gentle care that seems almost reverent. As you watch him, you can't help but feel a pang of curiosity about this mysterious place and its contents. What is it that Edwin's so carefully examining? And what secrets lie hidden within these walls? You take a step closer to investigate further, your footsteps echoing softly off the stone floor as you move deeper into the room. The air inside grows warmer with each passing moment, heavy with the scent of herbs and spices that seem almost familiar. You can't quite place it, but there's something about this smell that seems curiously comforting, like a warm hug on a chilly day. Your eyes rove over the shelves once more, taking in the rows of jars filled with all manner of dried plants, chamomile, lavender, and rose petals, alongside more exotic specimens whose names you can only guess at. A small wooden cabinet stands against one wall, its doors adorned with an intricate lock that seems almost unnecessary. As your gaze lingers on this cabinet, a faint rustling sound catches your attention coming from the far corner of the room. You turn to see Edwin standing beside a large wooden barrel, his eyes fixed intently upon something within. "Ah," he says quietly, "I think I've found what we're looking for." He reaches into the barrel and withdraws a small bundle wrapped in a length of old linen cloth. The fabric's been tied with twine that seems to be unraveling slowly, revealing glimpses of what lies beneath. Edwin hands you the package gingerly, his eyes locking onto yours as he says quietly, "This might explain some things about our situation." As your fingers close around the bundle, a small shiver runs through your body, almost imperceptible. But it's there, and for reasons that seem unclear, it feels Unsettling. You stand there frozen for what feels like an eternity, holding this mysterious package in your hands as you try to make sense of its contents. The air around you seems to thicken with anticipation, heavy with the weight of secrets yet unknown. The silence between you and Edwin grows almost palpable as you struggle to find words, but none seem quite adequate for what's happening here. Finally, after an interminably long moment that feels like hours rather than mere seconds, you manage a quiet "what is this?" Edwin's expression turns thoughtful. "I think it might be the key to understanding our predicament," he says slowly, his eyes scanning your face as if searching for something or someone. The words hang in the air between you both, heavy with unspoken implications that seem almost too great to bear. You feel a shiver run through your body once more, this time more pronounced than before, as though some fundamental understanding has shifted within you. For reasons unknown, this moment feels pivotal, as if everything that's come before is about to take on new significance in ways both unexpected and profound. You glance around the room once more, taking in its curious layout with fresh eyes. The shelves packed tightly with jars of dried herbs, the small hearth where a fire crackles softly, the wooden cabinet whose lock seems almost unnecessary. Every detail feels imbued with newfound meaning, as though something within this space has awakened a latent understanding that's been slumbering deep within you. Zedwin's words echo through your mind. "I think it might be the key to understanding our predicament." The phrase resonates like a gentle bell, its clarity almost startling. You realize with growing certainty that nothing about this experience has felt quite so straightforward as it should have, and yet, as you gaze down at the mysterious package still clutched in your hands, something within begins to shift ever so slightly into focus. The room seems quieter now than before, its air thickening with anticipation. You feel a strange sense of calm wash over you, as though some unseen weight has lifted from your shoulders. Edwin's eyes meet yours once more, his expression softening into something almost paternal. In this moment, he looks almost kind, and for reasons that escape you entirely. You nod slowly, taking in the scene before you with a growing sense of understanding. The package still feels heavy within your grasp, but now it seems less threatening than uncertain. As Edwin hands over another length of linen cloth to carefully unwrap the bundle's contents, the air around you thickens further into an almost palpable anticipation that hangs like a mist between worlds. The silence is almost expectant, as though something ancient and long dormant has begun stirring within these walls. As I stand there, linen cloth still clutched in my sweaty hand, I feel the hairs on the back of my neck prickle with unease. The air seems to vibrate with an almost imperceptible hum, like the quiet buzzing of a harp string plucked by an unseen hand. My eyes scan the dimly lit chamber, searching for some sign of what's causing this strange anticipation. My gaze falls upon the stone floor, where shadows dance in the flickering candlelight like dark specters on a midnight stage. I take a deep breath, trying to calm my racing thoughts and focus on the task at hand, unwrapping the mysterious bundle that lies before me. My fingers tremble slightly as I begin to unfold the linen cloth, revealing a series of intricate symbols etched into its surface. They appear to be some sort of arcane script, but I've never seen anything like them in all my years studying the ancient arts. The text seems to shift and writhe on the fabric like living serpents, as if it's alive and trying to convey some hidden message. My mind recoils from the sheer strangeness of it all. What manner of sorcery is this? As I continue to unwrap the bundle, a faint scent wafts up, carried on the gentle current of air within the chamber. It's a pungent odor, like nothing I've ever encountered before, sweet and decaying at the same time, with an undercurrent of something else. Something almost metallic. I frown, unsure what to make of this new development. My nostrils flare as I take in deeper breaths, trying to analyze the scent further. It's possible that some sort of fumigation has been employed, perhaps a mixture of herbs and spices designed to purify the air or ward off evil spirits. But something about it doesn't feel quite right. The air seems to thicken even more, as if in response to my thoughts. Shadows appear to deepen, coalescing into dark shapes that loom on either side of me like sentinels guarding a hidden truth. My skin prickles with goose flesh. I'm not alone in this chamber any longer. A faint whispering begins, barely audible over the creaks and groans of the old building. The words are indistinct, but their soft cadence sends shivers down my spine. It's an otherworldly language, one that speaks directly to some deep part of me, a region I've never explored before. My hands continue to unwrap the bundle with increasing haste, as if driven by some unseen force beyond my control. The air grows heavier still, until it feels almost solid beneath my fingers. My mind reels from the sheer strangeness of this experience. What manner of madness is this? I finally manage to free the contents of the bundle from its linen wrapping. A small wooden chest lies before me, adorned with intricate carvings that appear to be a mix of sacred and profane symbols. The box itself seems heavy, as if filled with an unseen weight rather than mere objects. As I lift the lid, a faint puff of misty vapor escapes, carrying on its surface a whispered phrase, "Sana corpus et animus," heal body and soul. My eyes widen in understanding. This must be some sort of arcane fumigation chamber, designed to purify both physical and spiritual afflictions. My gaze falls upon the contents within the box, and my heart skips a beat. There lies an assortment of dried herbs, carefully prepared to release their potent essences into the air when burned. A small ceramic dish contains a glowing powder that seems almost otherworldly in its properties, and beside it, a tiny crystal vial filled with what appears to be some sort of dark liquid. I recognize this as a rare and powerful substance, known only to those who have studied the forbidden arts in secret. My blood runs cold as I realize that whoever has prepared this fumigation must have been aware of my presence within these walls, and is now communicating their intentions through subtle means. The whispered phrase echoes again, "Sana corpus et animus," but its meaning shifts, takes on a new significance. It's no longer just an incantation for healing, it becomes a warning. This chamber holds secrets best left unspoken, powers that should never be unleashed. The morning light creeps through the narrow windows of your chamber, casting an eerie glow on the stone floor. You rise from bed, rubbing the sleep from your eyes, and begin to prepare for another day's work at the infirmary. As you make your way to the kitchen to start breakfast, the aroma of freshly baked bread wafts through the air, mingling with the scent of last night's stew. The servants have already laid out a simple meal: thin slices of salted meat, some boiled vegetables, and a wedge of cheese from the nearby monastery. You sit down at the table, taking a moment to appreciate the quiet morning stillness before the day's chaos sets in. As you eat, your mind begins to wander back to the strange occurrences that have been plaguing the infirmary lately. Cases of the sweating sickness, as it has come to be known among the townsfolk, continue to baffle even the most experienced physicians. The symptoms are varied. Some patients experience violent convulsions, while others succumb to a debilitating fever. You recall one particularly puzzling case that arrived just yesterday evening. A young apprentice, no more than 18 winters old, had been working in his master's workshop when he suddenly collapsed, racked with spasms and vomiting blood. Your colleagues were at a loss for what to do. Even the most trusted remedies seemed ineffective against this mysterious affliction. As you ponder the particulars of this case, trying to piece together any threads that might lead to an explanation, your thoughts are interrupted by the sound of footsteps outside your door. It's one of the servants, come to fetch a vial of powder from the storage room on the top floor. Upstairs, amidst dusty jars and neatly labeled containers, you rummage through shelves stacked with an assortment of dried herbs: chamomile for calming nerves, mint for soothing digestive troubles, and powdered rhubarb for, well, whatever other ailments it's supposed to alleviate. The servant hands you a small, intricately carved wooden box from the storage room. "From Brother Edwin," she says simply, as if that explains everything. You take the box back downstairs, its ornate lid adorned with symbols of Saint Sebastian and his archers. Inside, nestled among soft layers of cloth, lies an assortment of unassuming powders. A pinch of this, a dash of that, all neatly labeled on small parchment slips tied to each container with twine. You recognize most of the ingredients as common remedies used for treating minor afflictions: powdered silver for burns, crushed willow bark for feverish patients. But one particular label catches your eye, or rather, it's what doesn't catch your attention that piques your interest. Next to powdered unicorn horn is scribbled a small note in faint ink: "For the sweating sickness only." You raise an eyebrow at the mention of this exotic ingredient. According to legend, powdered unicorn horn was said to possess miraculous healing properties, though you've always been skeptical about such claims. Brother Edwin's involvement with this particular powder seems genuine enough, but where did he get it from? The morning wears on as you ponder these questions, the sun climbing higher in the sky beyond your window panes. Your mind keeps drifting back to that peculiar label and its mention of powdered unicorn horn. Just then, a knock at the door interrupts your reverie. One of the infirmary's patients has arrived for treatment. You put aside thoughts of Brother Edwin's mysterious powder and attend to the task at hand, listening to the patient's symptoms, diagnosing their condition, and devising an appropriate course of treatment. The young apprentice with the sweating sickness is still lying abed in his quarters. Your colleagues have decided to keep a close eye on him for now. You recall a conversation from earlier that morning about administering various treatments. The latest theory among physicians holds that this affliction might be linked to poor air quality, so they've set up makeshift fans to circulate the room's stagnant air. As you tend to your patients' needs, checking their pulse, making notes in your medical journal, a faint noise catches your ear. The sound of distant chanting drifts through the walls from outside. Some group is holding an impromptu service at the nearby church, asking for divine intervention against this mysterious plague that seems to have taken hold. Your thoughts turn again to Brother Edwin's powder and its dubious claims about powdered unicorn horn. You can't shake the feeling that there might be more to this sweating sickness than meets the eye, but what if you're looking at it from entirely the wrong angle? As the morning wears on, your patient is eventually discharged with a mixture of relief and disappointment. Their symptoms have eased somewhat, but they still linger in the infirmary's care. You take a moment to tidy up your notes before heading back out into the bustling streets, where rumors spread like wildfire about mysterious powders, dubious healers, and secret remedies. You walk through the winding streets of town, trying not to mind the curious stares from passers-by who glance at you with suspicion or awe. News of the sweating sickness has brought a mixture of fear and fascination. People whisper stories about miraculous cures, divine interventions, and cursed individuals carrying some hidden burden. You make your way toward the local market square, today being one of those rare days when vendors have managed to stock up on fresh produce from surrounding villages. Amid stalls selling everything from handmade candles to woven baskets, you spot Brother Edwin's familiar figure among the crowd, a humble monk with an unassuming air about him. You weave through the throngs toward his stall, curious about how he obtained that enigmatic powder and what might have prompted him to label it for the sweating sickness only. Perhaps, just perhaps, some piece of this puzzle will finally fall into place. As you approach the stall, the monk's gaze flicks up from his task and meets yours. His eyes are an unnerving shade of gray, almost as if they're absorbing the light around him rather than reflecting it back. He regards you for a moment before nodding curtly in acknowledgement. "Welcome to my humble stall," he says, his voice low and even. "I have just what you might be looking for." You notice that the monk's stall is tucked away in a corner of the market, partially shielded from prying eyes by a colorful array of silks and spices. The air around him seems different somehow, not quite stale, but not exactly fresh either. "What's this for the sweating sickness only powder you've got on display?" you ask, trying to sound nonchalant despite the growing sense that something peculiar is afoot. The monk's gaze drifts back down to his task, and he begins carefully packaging a small quantity of the enigmatic powder into a tiny pouch. "Ah, yes," he says, his voice dripping with an air of detached professionalism. "Remedy for those afflicted by the sweating sickness." You lean in closer, trying to catch a whiff of something, anything, that might give you a clue as to what this mysterious powder really is or does. But the monk's stall seems oddly free from any discernible scents, aside from the faint tang of medicinal herbs. What exactly is the sweating sickness? You press on, trying not to sound too inquisitive despite your growing sense that there might be more to this than meets the eye. The monk pauses, his fingers hovering over a small quantity of dried leaves that seem almost pulsing with an otherworldly energy. For a moment, it's as if he's sizing you up, deciding whether or not to share some long-held secret with one who may never be privy to such knowledge again. "I'm afraid I can only reveal so much," he says finally, his voice taking on a hint of solemnity that sends shivers down your spine. "The sweating sickness is the plague one that has swept across Europe in the past few years, claiming countless lives and leaving its survivors changed forever. He pauses again, studying you with an unnerving intensity. Some say it's caused by evil spirits, he continues quietly. Others claim to have seen demons lurking in the shadows of those afflicted. But I can tell you this, whatever the true cause may be, the sweating sickness is a cruel mistress indeed. You feel a shiver run down your spine as the monk hands over the pouch containing the enigmatic powder. I've helped many patients with this remedy, he says softly. But I must warn you, it's not without its risks. Some have reported strange side effects after taking it. He leans in closer, his voice dropping to a whisper that sends your heart racing. Some have seen visions of things past and present, he whispers urgently. Others claim to have heard voices that weren't there before. And then, of course, there are those who say they've been changed. As the monk straightens up once more, his gaze meets yours with an unnerving intensity. For a moment, you feel as though he's trying to convey something, perhaps even impart some hidden knowledge or secret that would change your understanding of this strange illness forever. But before you can press him for answers, a commotion breaks out at the far end of the market, drawing everyone's attention away from the monk and his mysterious stall. People begin shouting, pointing towards the outskirts of town, where a group of townsfolk are frantically gathering around something on the ground. The monk glances up toward the ruckus, a mixture of concern and curiosity etched onto his face. For a moment, you think he might take off to see what's happening, but instead his gaze drifts back down to your own, as if waiting for some signal or cue that only you can provide. As the chaos grows louder outside, the air around him begins to thicken with an almost palpable sense of foreboding. It becomes clear that whatever is brewing in this small market town has nothing at all to do with medicine, and everything to do with something far more sinister, a darkness lurking just beneath the surface, waiting to strike. What's going on? You ask him finally, trying to keep your voice steady despite the growing sense of unease building inside you. The monk's gaze lingers for another moment before his eyes flicker toward the chaos outside. It seems the sweating sickness has come to our fair town, he says quietly, as if sharing a terrible secret that might just seal your fate forever. The candle on Master Thomas's desk casts a faint glow over his pained expression. His eyes are red-rimmed from lack of sleep and worry etched deep into their creases as he scribbles notes in the margins of an ancient tome. Outside, the evening air carries the distant hum of crickets and the occasional hoot of an owl, a soothing melody that seems almost at odds with the somber mood within. The sweating sickness has indeed taken up residence in our town, spreading its dark tendrils through the crowded streets like some malevolent entity. Master Thomas's words still linger on your lips as you try to make sense of them. It seems the sweating sickness has come to our fair town. He spoke with a quiet urgency, as if sharing a terrible secret that might just seal your fate forever. You're standing in the doorway now, trying not to disturb Master Thomas's contemplation. His eyes flicker towards you for an instant before returning to his scribbling. The air is heavy with unspoken concerns, fears and anxieties that can't be voiced aloud. Your presence seems to momentarily lighten the atmosphere, though, as he sets down his quill and looks up at you. "Ah, good fellow," he says softly, "I'm glad I have some company."
It's
Quite a trial we're facing. He pauses, collecting his thoughts before continuing in a measured tone. You know how it is one case presents itself, and then another, and soon the entire town seems to be afflicted. As Master Thomas speaks, you glance around the dimly lit room. Shadows dance on the walls from the flickering candlelight, making it seem as though dark spirits might lurk just beyond the edge of perception. The air is thick with the scent of old parchment, dust, and something faintly medicinal, a mixture that's both familiar and disorienting. Your gaze drifts to the shelves lining the room, where rows of dusty jars contain an assortment of dried herbs and other botanical curiosities. Next to them stand tall glass vials filled with murky liquids that seem more like potions from some fantastical tale than actual remedies for the sweating sickness. In one corner, a wooden chest holds what appears to be a collection of rare books bound in worn leather. The evening outside seems quieter now, the crickets chirping softer and less insistent as if sensing your distraction within. A faint breeze stirs through the open window, rustling the pages of Master Thomas's notes. He frowns at this disturbance before refocusing on you. I've been poring over these ancient texts, he begins slowly, hoping to glean some insight into the sweating sickness's causes and perhaps, just perhaps, find a way to combat it. His eyes scan the pages in front of him as if searching for answers hidden within the lines of script. But every page seems to offer more questions than solutions. As you listen, Master Thomas rises from his chair and walks over to an alcove where a collection of medical instruments hangs on hooks or rests in wooden cases. He picks up a small vial filled with powder that sends up a faint dusting when he shakes it. The label reads Crocus sativus, saffron, the rare spice known for its golden hue and medicinal properties. With a practiced hand, Master Thomas carefully measures out a dose of crocus powder into another container before adding a few drops from one of his glass vials. He then wraps the small bundle in cloth, securing it with a length of twine before placing it on a nearby shelf alongside other remedies. His actions are methodical and deliberate, each movement reflecting years of study and experience in treating the sweating sickness's victims. Yet there's an undercurrent of frustration and desperation to his movements, as he seeks any glimmer of hope amidst the overwhelming tide of illness sweeping through their town. The candles on Master Thomas's desk cast shadows that stretch like skeletal fingers across the walls, making it seem as though time itself is weighing down upon him, burdening him with the weight of lives lost or at risk. In this quiet hour before nightfall, you sense his exhaustion, his worry for those who cannot be cured, and above all, a deep-seated desire to unravel the mysteries hidden within the sweating sickness. Your presence has provided a brief respite from these burdensome thoughts, a momentary distraction that allows him to share some of this load with someone else. And though he still seems lost in his own world, you can sense a glimmer of hope as Master Thomas turns back to face the room. Perhaps, just perhaps, together they might find an answer hidden within the ancient texts, or amidst the carefully measured doses of crocus powder and mysterious elixirs stored on those shelves. As Master Thomas turns back to face the room, his eyes scan the sea of worried faces before him. The air is thick with anticipation and fear, each person holding their breath in expectation of what will be revealed next. Maria steps forward, her hands clasped together as if in prayer, and begins to speak. "My dear friends," she says softly, "we have reason to believe that the young lord's condition may not be smallpox after all. A murmur runs through the crowd, a mix of relief and confusion etched on each face. Lord Edgar's mother steps forward, her eyes blazing with a fierce determination. "What do you mean?" she demands. "We've been treating him for smallpox for days now. What new diagnosis have you concocted?" Master Thomas holds up his hands in placation. "Please, Lady Edgar, hear us out. We've observed symptoms that don't quite add up to smallpox. The rash is irregularly distributed, and there's no fever worth speaking of." He pauses, collecting his thoughts before continuing. "We believe it may be ergot poisoning." The words hang in the air like a challenge, met with gasps and murmurs from the crowd. Lady Edgar takes a step forward, her face pale beneath its mask of determination. "Ergot," she repeats. "But that's unheard of." "And yet you're saying it might be deliberate." Master Thomas nods gravely. "We've reason to believe so, milady. The symptoms are consistent with exposure to ergot-tainted bread or grains. Someone must have intentionally poisoned the young lord." The room erupts into chaos as accusations fly back and forth. Lady Edgar's attendants rush forward to calm her down, while Master Thomas holds up his hands once more. "We need order here," he insists. "We can't determine who might be responsible for this without a level head. Let us examine the evidence and we'll uncover the truth." As the room slowly quiets down, Dr. Maria steps forward with a small vial of powder in her hand. "Milord Edgar's symptoms match those described by ancient Greek physicians. They attributed ergot poisoning to scent. Anthony's fire. Well, the effects can be quite terrifying." She hesitates before adding, "In some cases it leads to madness and death." A shiver runs down the collective spine of the onlookers as Dr. Maria produces a small piece of bread from her apron pocket. "We'll need to investigate who had access to Lord Edgar's food stores," she says firmly, "and question those around him in the days leading up to his illness." As Master Thomas begins to list off potential suspects, Lady Edgar interrupts with an accusatory finger pointed at one of her loyal attendants. "I knew it," she exclaims. "It was that traitorous servant Jenkins. I'll have his head for this." Jenkins himself steps forward, eyes wide with terror as he protests his innocence. But Master Thomas is not so easily swayed. "We must remain cautious," he says firmly. "We cannot leap to conclusions without concrete evidence. Lord Edgar's recovery, or lack thereof, depends on our ability to separate fact from speculation." As the tension in the room slowly dissipates, Dr. Maria slips a reassuring hand onto Master Thomas' arm. "Come now, sir," she whispers. "Together we'll unravel this mystery and uncover the truth behind the young lord's illness. And perhaps, just perhaps, we might find that there is more to this scent. Anthony's fire than meets the eye." Master Thomas glances at her with a hint of gratitude before turning back to face Lady Edgar. "We must proceed with caution, milady," he says firmly. "The truth will come out in due time. And when it does, justice shall be served." You're standing outside your apothecary's workshop, watching as the last wisps of sunlight fade behind the rooftops. The air cools slightly with each passing moment, carrying the scent of damp earth and yesterday's rain into your nostrils. You've spent a long day tending to patients, mixing potions, and haggling over prices with suppliers, all in preparation for tonight. Inside, Brother Edwin is preparing the dinner table, his hands moving deftly as he sets out three mismatched plates, some coarse bread, and a wedge of dry cheese. The fire crackles softly on its way to embers, casting flickering shadows across the stone walls. Your stomach growls in anticipation. It's been too long since you've eaten a hot meal. As Brother Edwin ladles steaming broth into three bowls, his gaze drifts toward your collection of medical texts, leather-bound tomes that line one wall of your workshop. His eyes linger on the worn cover of Galen's De Medicina, where a faint stain from last week's experiment still clings to its surface. You enter just as Brother Edwin is saying grace, his voice low and soothing over the sound of wooden spoons against ceramic bowls. The air inside is thick with the smell of stewed vegetables and baking bread, not unpleasant, but pungent enough that you'll be glad for a brief respite from it later tonight. Once dinner's finished, Brother Edwin heads out into the evening to fetch more firewood, his lantern casting an eerie glow over the cobblestones as he disappears around the corner. The silence is immediate and absolute, no chatter, just the distant hooting of owls in the city's outskirts, punctuated by the occasional bark from a stray dog. You're left alone with your thoughts for a short while, which suits you fine. There's been too much commotion over the past few days to have any real peace. Brother Edwin returns, bearing an armload of firewood that he stacks against one wall before taking his usual place by the hearth, this time without saying a word. You sit down next to him, reaching for your bowl and dipping your spoon into its contents with a contented sigh. The stew is thick and flavorful. You can taste the difference between Brother Edwin's simmering skills and last week's rushed attempt at cooking over an open flame in the courtyard. As you eat, your mind begins to wander back through today's events. Each patient's unique blend of symptoms, the arguments with suppliers about prices for certain herbs, and that one minor disagreement with Master Thomas from the City Watch. Nothing too serious, but enough to keep your thoughts occupied as the sun set over the rooftops. Now, as you push aside your bowl, feeling a little more at ease than before dinner, Brother Edwin stands up, his movements slow due to the weight of the firewood he's been carrying all day. "I need to get that wine," he says quietly, nodding toward the small keg on its hook in the corner. You exchange a look, you both know what this means. With so many patients coming through and no clear end in sight for their various afflictions, your supply of wine, essential not only as an antiseptic, but also to soothe frazzled nerves, has dwindled alarmingly over the past fortnight. Brother Edwin sets off into the evening, his footsteps echoing down the alley outside. You're left sitting by the fire with nothing much to do except listen for the sound of his return. It's going to take him a while to fetch more wine from the market stalls that remain open at this late hour. Time stretches out ahead like an empty page in one of your medical texts, awaiting its own particular stories, however mundane. Outside, you can hear Brother Edwin's footsteps growing fainter as he disappears into the night. The darkness gathers around him, a physical presence that presses down on the city until it feels almost palpable. Your thoughts drift away from the immediate concerns, patients, suppliers, firewood, and toward more abstract matters. Your own place in this world of sickness and suffering, what you're doing here, why you bother. The questions hang suspended within you like autumn leaves drifting lazily on a breeze that's barely perceptible. You lean back against the wall, letting its rough stones cradle your shoulders as Brother Edwin's footsteps grow fainter still, until they finally fade into silence altogether. Your stomach tightens with anticipation. He should have been gone for only long enough to fetch more wine. Yet time stretches out before you like an empty page. It's been a while since Brother Edwin left, and the fire is burning low now, its warmth still present but no longer radiating across the room as strongly as it had earlier. Shadows deepen and grow more pronounced on the walls. Your gaze settles on the faint outlines of your collection of texts standing against one wall. Brother Edwin's lantern can be seen bobbing in the distance, casting an erratic glow over the rooftops before disappearing around a corner. His footsteps reappear closer to home, heavier now from carrying a larger quantity of wine than he'd anticipated fetching tonight. You're relieved by this turn of events. You know what comes next. Brother Edwin's face will be flushed with exertion as he sets down his burden and announces the bad news that you suspected all along. Your apothecary's workshop holds its breath, anticipating an admission about your dwindling wine supply. As expected, when Brother Edwin returns, the first thing out of his mouth is "We've run out." His eyes meet yours in a moment of shared understanding before he heads off to pour some water from the nearby jug into each of the 3 empty bottles that stand on their hooks against one wall. As Brother Edwin carefully pours water into each bottle, his eyes flicker towards you and then back to his task, the soft clinking of glass against stone filling the silence between you. You can almost hear him thinking about what's next on your agenda for the night, or rather, what he'll need to acquire in order to keep the monastery running smoothly. The moon casts an eerie glow through the small windows high above the chapel floor, illuminating dust motes that dance like tiny ballerinas. In this dimly lit space, Brother Edwin's movements are almost ritualistic, a soothing balm for your frayed nerves after another long day of attending to the sick and injured. As he finishes with the last bottle, his gaze meets yours once more, this time accompanied by an encouraging nod. "Time to prepare the evening meal," he says quietly, already heading towards the nearby pantry where provisions are stored in wicker baskets and wooden crates. The smell of bread wafting from a nearby sack draws you out of your reverie. Your stomach growls at the prospect of food. Any kind of sustenance would be welcome after the arduous day ahead. Tonight's menu consists of stale bread, some meager vegetables stored in the cellar since springtime, and what passes for meat around here, dried rabbit scraps that have been on their way to becoming jerky for months now. As you make your way towards Brother Edwin, who has started arranging items on a wooden table near the fire pit at the center of the chapel, you take in the state of his hands, scratched and stained from manual labor. His fingers are thick with calluses earned over years of tending to gardens, animals, and occasionally, even yourself when your medical skills were required. The fireplace has been lit earlier that day by a young novice monk named Brother Mark, who spent more time staring at the flames than paying attention to what he was doing, as evidenced by the wisps of smoke curling from the chimney. The air inside is still thick with the smell of damp earth and wood smoke. Brother Edwin notices your gaze lingering on his hands and offers a wry smile. "Still working out the kinks," he says dryly before adding more seriously, "I'll get used to it again soon enough." He pauses for a moment, collecting himself as if remembering something important. "Speaking of which, I almost forgot. He rummages through his habits pouch and pulls out a small vial filled with an amber liquid that catches the dim light in shimmering flecks. Your heart skips a beat at the sight. It's been far too long since you've seen any real medicine. Medicinal bitters, he explains quietly as if sharing a secret. I acquired them from some traveling apothecary who came through last week. He hands over the vial with an air of pride and expectation. You take in its contents carefully, not just because you're a doctor yourself, but also because it's rare for Brother Edwin to have access to such specialized remedies. This bitters is typically reserved for particularly stubborn cases, or occasionally, when one needs something stronger than their own concoctions can provide. With the bottles filled and medicinal supplies at hand, your evening routine begins, albeit slowly. The night air carries whispers of forgotten melodies from distant churches and cloisters that seem to seep into every corner of this place like mist on a winter's morning. Your mind strays back to Brother Edwin's earlier comment about running out. Love wine or what? Your thoughts get tangled with visions of long-forgotten feasts, when your order was still flush with coin from the generous benefactors and traders who saw value in supporting their work. You find yourself back in your small workshop, surrounded by the familiar sense of herbs and incense wafting from the nearby apothecary. The soft glow of a single candle on your workbench casts eerie shadows on the walls as you rummage through a basket filled with dried human bones and ashes. Your fingers deftly separate the fragile remains of fingers, toes, and vertebrae. A faint scratching sound comes from outside, likely a mouse scurrying for shelter in the nearby thatched roof. The air is heavy with the scent of damp earth and decaying leaves carried on the gentle breeze through the open window. You've grown accustomed to this quiet rhythm of life as a medieval doctor, where each day blends into the next. The basket's contents hold remnants from various sources, some donated by charitable souls, others acquired during your, shall we say, research excursions in local cemeteries and abandoned burial grounds. Your work has earned you a reputation among fellow townspeople as an expert in utilizing even the most unusual materials to craft remedies. Your mind drifts back to that long-forgotten feast, when your order was still flush with coin from generous benefactors and traders who saw value in supporting their work. You recall how the warm glow of candelabras cast shadows on the walls, like sentinels guarding the secrets of the past. In those moments, you felt more than just a servant to the Lord. You were a guardian of sorts, preserving life through your understanding of the human body's mysteries. The thought of wine still lingers in your mind as you ponder what specific concoctions might be brewed with these particular remains. You've experimented with various potions using fragments of femur, sternum, and even skull pieces. Each one a testament to humanity's ingenuity in creating something from the discarded. A few feet away, amidst the shelves stacked with dusty jars containing an assortment of pickled plants and strange-smelling liquids, lies your prized possession. A small, intricately carved wooden box, adorned with symbols that hint at ancient knowledge passed down through generations. You've yet to crack its secrets, but whispers among fellow scribes suggest it might hold the key to infusing remedies with essence from rare herbs. Your hands pause as you consider which of these unusual components will become part of your next experiment. A bone dust-infused wine for treating fever-ridden children, or perhaps an ash-based paste meant to ease the pain of arthritic joints. Each choice weighed carefully against the limited resources available and the fragile balance between efficacy and risk. Time is a luxury you can ill afford in this line of work. Every hour counts as another patient seeks your expertise, some for ailments common to their station, others whose afflictions have left even experienced healers perplexed. The weight of responsibility settles upon your shoulders like an uninvited guest at the table. In this quiet moment before the next batch of visitors arrives, you allow yourself a fleeting glance outside into the fading light. Shadows dance across the cobblestone streets as day succumbs to night's gentle caress, a lullaby in its own right, one that echoes through your workshop. You hear the distant murmur of hushed conversations and laughter carried on the breeze from the nearby taverns, their patrons' stories no doubt filled with tales of battles fought and won, love lost and found. In these fleeting moments before sleep claims you, it's hard not to be drawn into those narratives, each one an echo of humanity's endless quest for meaning. As your gaze drifts back inside, the flickering candlelight casts eerie silhouettes on the walls. They seem to stretch out like skeletal fingers beckoning towards some hidden truth only the shadows know. You feel a shiver run down your spine as you return to your task at hand, sorting through this assortment of bone and ash. The basket's contents whisper secrets in hushed tones you've never thought about using vertebrae for, or why not try infusing femur dust into the wine with some lavender petals? Lid can't hurt, right? Your fingers move deftly as you separate each item according to its intended use, a task both soothing and meditative in itself. With every bone, fragment of rib cage, or splinter of skull piece placed into its designated container, memories resurface. Late-night vigils beside the bed of a patient whose life hung by a thread, hushed discussions with fellow physicians on the latest breakthroughs, or perhaps an afternoon spent foraging through overgrown churchyards in search of rare herbs. In these moments, time appears to move at its own pace, as if each second is suspended between the past and the present. Your thoughts meander back to that stone, weathered by years of rain and sun. What date was it? And what does it say? It said your predecessor, a man known for his groundbreaking work in understanding human anatomy through meticulous dissections, used such materials extensively within his research. Some claim he even created concoctions from the ashes of those who died under mysterious circumstances, believing their essence held healing properties. Your hands pause as you consider this notion. Could it be true? Did your predecessor really manage to unlock some hidden potential in these discarded remains? Or was it merely a desperate attempt at finding solace amidst death and decay? As night slowly takes hold outside, the workshop becomes even quieter. Only the soft creaks of wooden beams settling with age break the stillness. It's as if the very walls are exhaling their own breathless sigh in anticipation of another day filled with mysteries waiting to be unraveled. With each passing moment, your focus drifts back toward the task at hand, selecting which component will become part of tomorrow's experiments, or perhaps something entirely new born from combining these fragments in ways they've never been used before. The possibilities seem endless as you delve deeper into this realm, where art and science blur like watercolors on wet parchment. And so the night wears on, a gentle, insistent presence urging you towards sleep, its call growing stronger with each passing minute. As your eyes begin to droop, visions of those long-forgotten feasts resurface. Tables overflowing with steaming platters, laughter echoing through halls filled with strangers and friends alike. In these fleeting moments before the world succumbs to darkness, it's hard not to be drawn into their stories, each one an echo of humanity's eternal quest for meaning within a life governed by birth, decay, and rebirth. As I stood amidst the revelry, sipping my own ale-dulled thoughts away, I felt an inexplicable tug on the fringes of my awareness. It was a gentle nudge, one that whispered secrets in hushed tones and beckoned me to follow. I excused myself from the crowd, slipping through the throng with the ease of a ghost among shadows. The flickering torches outside cast eerie silhouettes against the crumbling stone walls as I made my way towards the apothecary's quarters. The night air was heavy with the scent of herbs and something else, something acrid that spoke to me of charred wood and ashes. My footsteps quieted on the threshold, and a faint scratching echoed from within. Inside, the familiar musty aroma enveloped me like an old friend. I recognized the setup: rows of dusty jars, wooden chests stacked haphazardly against walls lined with sheaves of parchment. In one corner, a small brazier glowed softly, its contents a medley of bones and scraps reduced to smoldering embers. In this quiet sanctuary, surrounded by the detritus of countless lives lived, I found him, our village's respected apothecary Godric. His eyes twinkled in the dim light as he poked at something on his workbench with a bone-handled knife. A faint smile played upon his lips. "Ah, good master alchemist," he said by way of greeting without looking up from his task. "I see you've finally succumbed to curiosity about our unusual endeavors." Godric's fingers danced across the wooden surface as if conducting an invisible orchestra. I watched in fascination as a small heap of bone fragments began to take shape beneath his ministrations. "It's all about finding uses for what others might deem useless," he said, glancing up at me with an air of mischief. "These bones mostly from our own village, the occasional traveler who met their end on the nearby moors. We can't let them go to waste." With a flourish, Godric revealed his handiwork, a delicate filigree brooch fashioned from intertwined femur and tibia segments. The intricate patterns seemed almost organic in design. "As it so happens," he said with an air of nonchalance, "our village elder's wife is due for the traditional annual blessing this coming equinox. A bit of bonework will ensure her good fortune, and maybe, just maybe, some future prosperity." My gaze drifted to a nearby shelf where row upon row of neatly arranged bottles seemed to house. Well, I couldn't quite tell what they held. The contents swirled and shifted within the glass confines like shifting sands. "Those," Godric chuckled at my curiosity, "our own brand of medicine for when all else fails." He handed me a vial filled with an unrecognizable mixture that seemed to shimmer in the candlelight. I recognized some ingredients, chamomile, lavender, but these others. "Oh, what's this one do?" "Ah," Godric said with a smile that hinted at secrets kept and tales untold. "This is when we bend the line between life and death." I hesitated for an instant before carefully uncorking the vial. The scent was unlike anything I'd encountered, sweet yet acrid, like wet earth after spring rains. As it turned out, Godric's use of ashes went far beyond mere ritual or ornamentation. This potion held a dark and fascinating secret. Brewed from human remains, it was said to imbue its consumer with an unyielding vitality in times of desperate need, be that healing wounds, warding off curses, or even communicating with the restless dead. Fumbling for words, I asked Godric about his methods, wondering at the implications. He leaned forward, lowering his voice as he began to explain. See, when a life has passed on from this world, it leaves behind more than just dust and ashes. A piece of their essence, call it what you will, soul, spirit, or merely the accumulation of memories and experiences, it remains. Godric's eyes took on an almost otherworldly intensity as he pressed onward. We find ways to capture that essence in various forms: bones for durability, ash for transmutation. A bit like alchemy, but instead of base metals turning gold, we coax hidden properties from the raw materials themselves. I couldn't help feeling a thrill of excitement mixed with trepidation at these revelations. Unusual uses indeed. Intrigued and also more than a little unnerved, I left Godric to his craft, or perhaps art, depending on how one looked at it. The world beyond our village walls seemed both closer and farther away as the night wore on, an uncanny sense of possibility hanging in the shadows. It was only later that I stumbled upon more hints, whispered rumors among travelers about bones imbuing luck. A young couple who claimed their son's small bone pendant had allowed him to walk through treacherous mountain paths unscathed. The line between myth and reality blurred, at least for me. Perhaps it was just my imagination playing tricks as the hours passed into darkness. But what I knew with an unsettling certainty, there existed forces beyond our everyday lives that Godric's craft touched upon, forces hidden in plain sight within those fragile vessels of bone, ash, or dust. Now, with morning breaking outside and a new day dawning on our small village, I can only wonder at the paths this night has opened up for me. The first light of dawn creeps through the shutters, casting a warm glow on the wooden floorboards of my humble abode. The air inside is still heavy with the scent of last night's supper, roasted meats and simmering stews that lingered long after I'd retired to bed. You are here now, in this small cottage nestled between the village green and the forest edge. Outside, the world is slowly stirring, birds chirping their morning songs, water splashing from the nearby well as villagers begin their daily routines. I rise from my pallet, feeling a gentle stretch in my back after a night spent on the thin mattress. The chill of winter still lingers in the air, but I'm grateful for this modest warmth that seeps into my bones. A soft blanket, worn and faded with use, lies draped over me as I move towards the fire pit. Last night's embers have long since died down to cold ash, but a small kettle hangs from the hook above it, patiently waiting its turn at boiling water. The familiar creak of wooden spoons against earthenware jars echoes through the room, a signal that my apprentice, Erendor Thorn, is already up and about. As I move towards him, the faint scent of crushed herbs wafts from his workbench, dried chamomile perhaps, or feverfew to soothe any early morning complaints. He's busy sorting an assortment of jars filled with peculiar powders and liquids, some clear as water, others murky like swamp water. Morning, he says without looking up, voice muffled by the rim of a jar held close to his nose. I nod in greeting, eyeing the array before him. Still experimenting. Not exactly. He pauses, lowering the jar with an air of resignation. Just trying to recreate the formula from that old apothecary's notes. A faint memory stirs within me, one I've tried to ignore for weeks now but can't seem to shake off entirely. That stone in the corner of my workshop. Its date is incorrect by a good 5 years. What if it's not? What if everything we thought about our village's history, including its supposed connections with distant lands and ancient wisdom, was based on faulty information? The possibility sends a shiver down my spine, but I push it aside for now. There's no use getting worked up over theories when the day has just begun. You are still here in this quiet space, surrounded by the soft murmur of morning routines outside. The scent of freshly baked bread wafts through the window from the nearby bakery, a sweet treat that'll be ready soon after I finish my rounds today. For now, though, Urendor's work takes precedence. He hands me a small vial filled with an oily liquid and some dry powder at its base. "This is it," he says with an air of excitement. "The secret ingredient list from the apothecary whose notes I've been studying." The label on the vial bears no indication of what this mixture might be intended for, only a cryptic symbol etched into one corner, perhaps a family crest or some sort of code. "Any idea?" you ask aloud, and Urendor looks up at me with an eager expression. "Well, I'm still working on deciphering the script. But if my guess is correct, this mixture might just be worth its weight in gold." I study the vial more closely. The powder seems to shift as it settles against the glass wall of the container. This could indeed be something extraordinary. But we've got no time for speculation now, not with a long day ahead and patients waiting to be seen. As I nod at Urindor, "Keep working on that formula. We'll see if we can't unravel its secrets when you're done." As he returns to his workbench, the sound of clinking jars and rustling parchment fills the air once more, an almost soothing background noise, calming my thoughts as the village outside slowly awakens. You are still here with me in this quiet space, surrounded by the faint scent of herbs and powders, listening to Urendor's hushed mutterings as he ponders over ancient mysteries. The morning light casts long shadows across the room now, a reminder that time is passing, even if it feels like we're stuck in an endless loop. Before I can continue my examination of this mysterious vial, there's something else to attend to: breakfast. The village green outside will be bustling with people soon, all chattering about their day ahead and what they hope to achieve, no doubt including our own meager plans for the morning. You join me at the small table by the window where a simple meal awaits: bread and cheese from yesterday's baking, washed down with a flask of cold water. The sunlight catches the dust motes dancing in air as I take my first bite. And that is when you notice it, a tiny piece of parchment folded into an almost imperceptible triangle on the edge of your plate. Your eyes flick towards mine for confirmation. Have we been playing host to some mischievous visitor, leaving behind this cryptic message? My eyes lock onto yours, and I can see the question written all over your face. For a moment, we sit there in silence, the only sound being the gentle clinking of silverware on fine china. The fire crackles in the hearth behind us, casting flickering shadows across the walls. "Ah," I say finally, my voice low and measured, "I think it's safe to assume that our visitor has left a little surprise for us." My gaze falls back onto the parchment triangle, and I feel a shiver run down my spine. Who could have done this? And why? The room around us seems to grow quieter, as if everyone is holding their breath in anticipation of what might happen next. The other guests begin to murmur among themselves, speculating about who might be behind the mysterious message. One of our serving maids approaches cautiously, eyeing the parchment with a mixture of curiosity and wariness. "Might I take it, sir?" she asks me, her voice barely above a whisper. I nod, my hand extending to retrieve the piece of paper from your plate. As soon as I touch it, I can feel its surface is smooth and slightly damp almost. Greasy. My mind starts racing with possibilities. Could this be some sort of poison or curse? With great care, I unfold the triangle into a small square, revealing several lines of text scrawled in hasty handwriting. The words seem to dance across the parchment, like ants marching in chaos. Take thyme and valerian root. Add a pinch of wolf's bane. In vinegar, steep them long. And add 1 drop at dawn. I glance up at you, my eyes wide with alarm. Do we have any idea what this is supposed to be for? I ask aloud. You shake your head, but then something clicks into place in your expression. Your eyes light up with recognition. The apothecary's secret ingredient list, you exclaim. How do you know that? The thought pops into my mind like a startled rabbit. You're not just any guest at our dinner party, you're an enthusiast of the healing arts, aren't you? As I gaze deeper into your eyes, I notice something peculiar. A faint scent wafts from between your fingers. It's similar to the aroma on that mysterious parchment, earthy and slightly bitter. My mind whirs back to life as realization hits me like a sledgehammer. You're one of them, I whisper, my voice barely audible over the din in the room. Your lips part, but before you can respond, another guest pipes up from across the table. An elderly man with spectacles perched on the end of his nose speaks out in an excited tone. Yaha. Now we have it, a reference to Galen's own recipe for Dragon's Bane Potion. The room erupts into a cacophony of chattering, with several guests jumping up from their seats to debate the merits and possibilities hidden within that cryptic message. I listen in growing fascination as you begin to explain your theories on what might be behind this enigmatic note. If we were to analyze its components, you say, we'd find it matches an obscure combination of herbs known for unusual properties. I raise my glass to conceal a nervous smile. These are the sorts of conversations that have been fueling our dinner party's undercurrent all evening. Our host has orchestrated this carefully crafted gathering with one purpose in mind: to bring together individuals familiar with the mysteries of medieval healing. As I take another sip from my goblet, watching you continue your expert analysis while others join in the fray around us, a subtle connection forms between us. Your genuine interest and knowledge spark an electrifying sense that there's more at play here than mere conversation or dinner party games. And then it dawns on me. The parchment triangle might not have been left by some mischievous stranger after all. The flickering candlelight casts an eerie glow on the parchments scattered across my workbench. I've spent hours poring over them, trying to decipher the cryptic symbols and notes scrawled in haste. The triangle's edges seem to point towards a particular phrase: King's favorite tavern, a memory surfaces, the tavern's warm aroma wafting through the streets of Ashwood, enticing passers-by with its promise of ale and roasted meats. You are walking along the cobblestone path that winds its way past the town square. The evening air is alive with chatter and laughter as people gather outside the king's favorite tavern. You press your face against a window pane to get a glimpse inside. Rows of wooden tables, patrons clinking mugs together in camaraderie, the fire crackling in the hearth. A serving girl hurries past you, carrying an overflowing tray of tankards and steaming plates of meat pies. She nearly collides with a group of travelers huddled near the tavern entrance, their weary eyes scanning the bustling scene within. The clatter of pots and pans echoes from inside as the evening meal preparations reach a fever pitch. The king's favorite is renowned for its generous portions and rich stews, all made possible by the skilled hands of master cook Gorm. His recipes have been passed down through generations, each one infused with love and care that makes every mouthful feel like a small celebration. As you enter the tavern, the hostess greets you warmly, her apron stained with last night's dinner sauce. You make your way to an empty table near the fire, running your hand over the worn wooden surface as you take in the lively atmosphere. A lute player sits nearby, fingers deftly plucking a soothing melody that wraps around the room like a warm shawl. The music seems to seep into the very walls of the tavern, mingling with the scent of roasting meats and fresh bread wafting from the kitchen. As you take your first sip of ale, a murmur spreads through the crowd, hushed conversations, nervous glances exchanged between patrons. The king's favorite is no stranger to gossip, but this particular rumor seems different. It begins with whispers about a mysterious fire that ravaged part of Ashwood last week, sending flames racing down alleys and gutting several buildings. You press your ears closer, trying to grasp the thread of speculation weaving its way through the tavern. Some say it was an accident, a stray ember from a woodcutter's cart igniting dry straw in the nearby market stalls. Others claim it was no coincidence. Someone deliberately set fire to those buildings to cover their own tracks. The king himself is said to be outraged, demanding swift justice for those responsible. His guards patrol the streets at night now, searching for anyone who might have had a hand in the destruction. Rumors of arson and treason swirl like autumn leaves on the wind, leaving you with more questions than answers as you wonder, who burned down the king's favorite tavern? Outside, under the stars twinkling above Ashwood, I ponder this mystery alongside my own parchments. Perhaps it's not a coincidence that the triangle points towards the tavern. Perhaps there's something hidden within those symbols waiting to be uncovered. My eyes wander to the edge of town, where the city watchmen gather near the blackened remains of what once was a thriving market stall. They speak in hushed tones, their lanterns casting flickering shadows on nearby buildings as they review evidence collected from the site. Twisted metal scraps, charred wood shavings, and an old wooden spoon, said to belong to Master Cook Gorm. You walk alongside me now, our footsteps echoing through the silent streets. We approach a makeshift shelter set up near the ruined market stall, a small collection of belongings salvaged by those who lived nearby. Broken furniture, torn tapestries, and what appears to be half a dozen ceramic mugs piled haphazardly on top. Among these items lies an old wooden spoon with Gorm's initials etched onto its handle. The hostess from the king's favorite had mentioned seeing him arguing with someone near the market stall just before it burned down. Someone he claimed was spreading malicious rumors about his cooking techniques. It seems Master Cook's rivalry with a fellow chef, Godric, might be more than just petty squabbles over recipes. We stand there in contemplative silence as night wears on, you thinking back to Gorm and the mysterious triangle, me staring at those parchments still spread out before us, trying to decipher their hidden message. Perhaps it's not what we think it means, but rather where these symbols laid that holds the key to unraveling this mystery. The king's favorite tavern stands quiet now, its patrons retired for the night and the evening meal preparations all wrapped up. A faint scent of charcoal smoke lingers in the air as I gaze back at my workbench, those parchments scattered, yet no closer to revealing their secrets than when we began. I notice a piece of parchment tucked between two larger ones, partially hidden from view, one that bears an unfamiliar symbol, a stylized drawing of a castle gate. A faint note scribbled in the margin reads, "Inquire about Wolfgar's recent activities." As I reach for the parchment to examine it closer, my fingers brush against the familiar texture of dried ink on vellum. The symbol etched into the margin seems almost too ornate to be a simple doodle. Perhaps it's a code. I recognize the style as one used by our order's scribes, but the specific design looks out of place among the more practical notes and sketches that typically clutter my research papers. I turn the parchment over in my hands, studying it from every angle. The scribble on the margin seems to be written in a hasty hand, not unlike Wolfgar's own script when he was in a rush to complete an assignment. Could this note have something to do with his recent work? I try to recall our last meeting and conversation about the tavern burning, but my mind is clouded by memories of patients and prescriptions. Just then, Brother Edwin pokes his head into the scriptorium, his eyes scanning the room for a moment before settling on me. "Yalaric, the abbot wants you in his chambers immediately," he says, not even attempting to hide the urgency from his voice. I reluctantly set aside the parchment and make my way towards the abbot's quarters, wondering what new crisis has arisen in our little community of scholars and healers. As I pass through the cloister, I catch a glimpse of Wolfgar huddled with Brother Jerome near the library entrance. They seem engrossed in some intense conversation. Upon arriving at the abbot's chambers, I find him pacing before the fireplace, his brow furrowed in concern. "Naz Alaric, good fellow, we've had a bit of news," he says as soon as I enter. "The king himself has sent word that the fire which destroyed the Raven and Rooster Tavern was no accident." I raise an eyebrow. Rumors have been circulating about possible arson, but nothing concrete had emerged to support these claims. The abbot hands me a sealed letter from the palace, his eyes serious. "'Tis said that someone with knowledge of dark magic is suspected," he continues, "and His Majesty has asked our order for assistance in unraveling this mystery." As I break the seal and begin reading through the missive, my mind starts racing. Dark magic. The idea sends shivers down my spine. I've studied enough to know that such practices are not only morally reprehensible but also potentially lethal. I make a mental note to speak with Wolfgar about this new information as soon as possible. Perhaps his recent activities have some connection to the fire and the mysterious symbol on the parchment. The abbot notices my interest in the letter, and he nods encouragingly. Indeed, Alaric. We must do everything we can to shed light upon this matter. I finish reading through the palace's message, committing key details to memory. The tavern owner has been summoned for questioning. Several members of a local guild have come forward claiming they saw an individual lurking around the building on the night it burned down. And there are whispers about a possible involvement between the tavern fire and other recent events in the city. As I hand the letter back to the abbot, he asks me to return with him to the scriptorium. Brother Edwin has been tasked with gathering all relevant texts related to dark magic. Be sure to include any notes or theories from Wolfgar, he adds. We must consider every possibility. Upon returning to our workspace, I find that Wolfgar is indeed there, huddled over a pile of dusty scrolls. He looks up as I approach and gives me an enigmatic smile. For once, his eyes are not clouded with his usual melancholy. I nod at him in greeting, trying not to pry into whatever conversation he was having earlier with Brother Jerome. As the abbot leaves us to our work, Wolfgar leans over and whispers, "You'll want to take a look at this." He slides across a page torn from one of his own notebooks. I recognize it as containing sketches related to an experiment on plant growth under artificial light sources. But then my eyes land on a specific passage highlighted in red ink. In the absence of true darkness, shadows come alive, Wolfgar's scribbled hand reads. I had thought this theory nothing more than an exercise, yet now it seems pertinent. A shiver runs down my spine as I realize that some threads from his research might indeed be connected to our case. You find yourself standing outside a small, cluttered apothecary on a foggy morning in 1450s London. The sign above the door creaks in the gentle breeze, bearing an image of a snake entwined around a staff. You can just make out the faint scent of dried herbs wafting from within. As you push open the creaky door, a bell above it lets out a soft tinkle, announcing your presence to the apothecary's proprietor. The shop is dimly lit, with rows of dusty shelves stretching towards the low ceiling like sentinels guarding ancient secrets. The air inside is thick with the musty smell of aged parchment and the faint tang of medicinal substances. You notice a small, leather-bound book lying open on a nearby counter, its pages dog-eared from frequent use. A quill pen lies abandoned beside it, as if the apothecary had been interrupted in mid-task. The text is written in hasty, uneven script, vervain for protection. 3 pinches of powdered wormwood to be added. Your eyes wander across the page, and you catch a glimpse of a notation scribbled in the margin, something about an E. Wycliffe being accused of witchcraft. Your gaze drifts back to the apothecary's proprietor, who is busily sorting through a batch of dried herbs on his workbench. He looks up as he senses your presence and flashes you a warm smile, revealing a missing front tooth. His name tag reads Brother Edwin. Good morrow. Welcome to my humble abode. What brings you here today? Brother Edwin asks, his voice low and soothing. You find yourself drawn into the apothecary's world as he leads you through the shelves stacked with peculiar items. Dried mushrooms that look like tiny umbrellas, bunches of dried lavender tied with twine, and jars filled with murky liquids. He expertly identifies each item by touch, occasionally sniffing a vial or holding it up to the light. Ah, yes. This one's from the Black Forest, good for treating fever, he says, handing you a small glass bottle filled with a viscous liquid. You take it cautiously, feeling its weight in your palm before returning it to him. Oh, and this? Ah, just some common sage. Good for repelling bad dreams. As Brother Edwin continues his work, the conversation meanders across various topics, from the latest news on King Henry VI's health to a particularly nasty bout of smallpox that has been circulating through the city. You begin to wonder what might be causing such commotion about witchcraft in these parts. You ask Brother Edwin if he knows anything about Wycliffe, and his expression turns serious for an instant before returning to its usual warmth. Yeah, yes, of course. Edwina Wycliffe, a fine woman with many talents. Some folks might say she's got a bit too much knowledge on her hands, Brother Edwin says, carefully choosing each word as if selecting rare herbs from his shelves. You see, the authorities have been cracking down rather vigorously on those they deem to be practicing dark magic. E. Wycliffe was taken in for questioning just last week. Your curiosity is piqued by this information, and you ask Brother Edwin what he knows about these accusations. Well, some folks claim she's been casting spells, brewing potions that'll bring ruin upon the city, Brother Edwin says with a hint of hesitation. But I reckon it's all nonsense, just a bit of gossip and hearsay. Edwina Wycliffe is as innocent as a lamb. As you continue to chat with Brother Edwin, you start to notice an undercurrent of unease beneath his words. His usually light mannerisms seem tinged with worry. Tell me, you press him gently, what exactly happens when someone's accused of witchcraft? Brother Edwin glances around the shop nervously before lowering his voice. If they're deemed guilty. Well, it doesn't end well for them, I'm afraid. He pauses to gather a small vial and add some powder from an adjacent shelf. The air inside the apothecary seems to grow quieter as you watch Brother Edwin measure out precise amounts of dried herbs with a tiny spoon. His hands move deliberately, yet there's something furtive about his actions, almost as if he fears being overheard by invisible ears lurking in the shadows. You notice that some folks might be watching from across the street, hooded figures lingering near the church doorway or old women peering out of half-open windows. Their faces seem to hold a mix of curiosity and suspicion, their eyes darting towards Brother Edwin's shop as if waiting for something, perhaps a sign, a message, or an omen. Outside, the fog rolls in thicker now, shrouding the narrow streets with a damp chill that seems to cling to everything it touches. You can almost see the breath misting before your face as you stand there listening to Brother Edwin's measured tones. The apothecary returns his attention to mixing some peculiar concoction, an elixir of dried chamomile and powdered mint, by the looks of it, carefully measuring out precise amounts with tiny instruments. His hands seem to be guided by a practiced instinct as he stirs the mixture counterclockwise before pouring it into a small vial. You feel your eyelids growing heavy now, lulled by Brother Edwin's soothing voice and the gentle rocking motion of his workbench. As Brother Edwin pours the mixture into the vial, his eyes never leave your face. His gaze is steady and reassuring, like that of an old friend who has seen you through countless trials and tribulations. You feel a sense of trust wash over you as he seals the vial with a small cork and begins to write on it in Latin. Ah, he says, looking up at you, the potion will help you sleep soundly tonight. A good night's rest is essential for the body to heal itself. He hands you the vial and instructs you to drink its contents when you retire to your bedchamber. You take the vial from him, feeling a sense of gratitude towards this kind brother who has taken such care with his craft. As he continues to work on his task, you glance around the room at the various artifacts that line his shelves and cabinets. There are jars filled with strange powders and liquids, rows of glass containers housing dried herbs and flowers, and an assortment of metal instruments whose purposes you can only guess. Brother Edwin notices your interest in his equipment and smiles benevolently. Ah, my tools, he says, picking up a small wooden spoon from the shelf beside him. They are essential to my work as a physician. He begins to clean the spoon with a soft cloth, wiping away any residual dust or debris. As you watch, Brother Edwin's mind seems to wander back to his task at hand. His eyes refocus on some distant point, and he continues speaking in a low, even tone. You see, my child, when it comes to healing the sick, one must always consider the principles of hot and cold. The balance between these two fundamental forces is crucial for restoring health. He sets down his spoon and picks up a small wooden box from beneath his workbench. Inside, you can see various powders and herbs arranged in neat compartments. This, he says, opening the lid to reveal its contents, is my collection of materia medica. Each item here has been carefully selected for its medicinal properties. You lean forward, intrigued by the assortment of dried plants and minerals on display within the box. Brother Edwin notices your fascination and begins to explain their uses in more detail. Ah, he says, pointing out a small vial containing a yellowish powder, this is golden seal. It has antibacterial properties that make it useful for treating infections. He hands you the vial so that you can examine its contents up close. As you study the golden seal, Brother Edwin continues his explanation of how he uses various herbs and minerals to treat different ailments in patients who come to him seeking healing. His words flow easily from one subject to another, illustrating a deep understanding of the intricate relationships between body, spirit, and environment that underlie all aspects of health. Time seems to pass quickly as you sit listening to Brother Edwin's gentle voice and watching his skilled hands move with practiced ease among the various objects on his workbench. Your eyelids grow heavy once more, but this time they are not a sign of exhaustion. Instead, it is the soporific effect of the potion he gave you earlier that begins to take hold. As your thoughts start to blur and focus less sharply, Brother Edwin's words begin to blend together in a soothing hum. His face fades into view as his voice whispers something about the importance of balance, before everything dissolves into darkness. You sink slowly downwards, feeling yourself drift off towards the realm of dreams where memories can be both fragmented and vivid. The soft rocking motion of Brother Edwin's workbench continues to lull you deeper, until your mind becomes completely absorbed in a dreamless sleep that lasts for hours on end. The soft rocking motion of Brother Edwin's workbench continues to lull you deeper, until your mind becomes completely absorbed in a dreamless sleep that lasts for hours on end. But the slumber doesn't last forever. You slowly come back to awareness as the first light of dawn creeps through the small windows high above, casting an ethereal glow over the dimly lit workshop. As you regain consciousness, Brother Edwin's gentle snoring fills your ears, a soothing background hum that seems almost in sync with the creaking of wooden beams and the distant chirping of birds outside. You notice a faint scent of candle wax and sandalwood wafting through the air, carried on the morning breeze. You feel the softness of Brother Edwin's worn leather apron beneath your hands as you gently remove it from around his waist, taking care not to disturb him further. The apron is stained with small droplets of oil and faint smudges of soot, a testament to the previous day's labors in the workshop. Your fingers brush against Brother Edwin's tools, which are laid out on a nearby workbench, an assortment of worn wooden spoons, metal scoops, and a handheld mortar. The instruments seem almost like relics from another era, their surfaces bearing the patina of years spent serving Brother Edwin's skilled hands. As you carefully place Brother Edwin's apron back in its designated hook near the door, your gaze falls upon a peculiar object nearby, an intricately carved wooden box adorned with small gemstones and delicate filigree. The lid is slightly ajar, revealing the contents inside, a collection of small glass vials filled with various colored liquids, each one meticulously labeled on a tiny parchment attached to its neck. The box seems out of place amidst Brother Edwin's more mundane tools and equipment. It appears almost like an artifact brought from another world. You can't help but wonder what purpose this enigmatic container might serve in the daily life of a medieval doctor. You return your attention to Brother Edwin, who stirs slightly as you move closer. His eyes flutter open and he stretches his arms above his head, yawns widely, revealing rows of crooked teeth. A faint smell of sleep dust clings to him like an old friend's familiar scent. Brother Edwin rubs the fatigue from his eyes with a thick-fingered hand and takes in your presence with a slow smile. "Ah, good morrow," he says, his voice still husky from sleep. "I trust you're feeling well rested." You nod in response as Brother Edwin rises to his feet, taking care not to knock over any of the surrounding objects. The wooden box catches your eye once more. It seems almost like a puzzle waiting for its solution. As Brother Edwin begins the morning routine, stirring embers into life, brewing some tea from dried herbs on a nearby brazier, you can't help but feel drawn back to that enigmatic container. Its presence in this simple workshop setting raises all sorts of questions about what exactly it does here and why it's been kept so carefully hidden. You decide to let the mystery rest for now. After all, there are more pressing matters at hand, like helping Brother Edwin with his daily rounds among the local villagers, where you'll need your wits about you to navigate a world filled with illnesses both known and unknown. With morning light filtering through the windows, casting long shadows across the workshop floor, you help Brother Edwin gather his tools for another day's work. Your eyes wander back to that small wooden box as you move towards him. Its closed lid seems almost like an invitation, but one that will have to wait until your return from the village. Outside, a warm breeze carries scents of damp earth and new growth into the workshop, mingling with the rich smell of candles burned down overnight. You breathe deeply, feeling invigorated by the promise of another day ahead in this quiet corner of medieval life. As you step out into the morning light with Brother Edwin at your side, a faint whisper echoes through the silence, an almost imperceptible sound that blends seamlessly into the background hum of daily activity. The soft clucking of chickens rising from their roosts outside nearby homes, signaling another new day in this tranquil village. The gentle atmosphere gradually envelops you as you follow Brother Edwin down winding pathways and through narrow alleys, where old stone walls stand watch alongside rusty iron gates adorned with faded crests. Your footsteps merge into the steady rhythm of the morning routine, a soothing cadence that harmonizes with your heartbeat. On one such stroll along the village high street, you pause to glance at an aged wooden sign creaking in the breeze. A symbol bearing the image of a medieval doctor's cross above it reads Medicus in faded lettering. Below this marker lies another wooden board where the day's schedule is listed. Brother Edwin's patient visits, along with reminders about who needs what treatment or examination. Your gaze falls upon one particular name scribbled on that list, a young boy named Timothy, whose case has been particularly puzzling for both you and Brother Edwin. The entry mentions an appointment scheduled for today. It seems likely this will be the time to tackle whatever conundrum lies within his mysterious condition. As morning sun lightens up faces around you, illuminating worry lines on worried brows and softening sharp angles of rugged features, a faint memory surfaces from your previous visits with Timothy, how his parents described him as being able-bodied but often getting confused looks whenever he spoke about what lay beyond the walls surrounding their village. You look over at Brother Edwin. Does he share that same puzzlement? A hint of understanding flickers across his face for an instant before returning to its usual mask, a testament to years spent wrestling with such enigmas in this quiet corner of medieval life. As I glance over at Brother Edwin, our village's resident scholar and theologian, he catches my eye for a brief moment before refocusing on the task at hand, poring over an ancient tome in search of answers to the mysteries that surround us. His expression is inscrutable once more, but I sense that he has caught wind of something amiss. I return my attention to our patient, young Erindor Thorn, who lies on a nearby pallet, his eyes fixed intently upon some unseen realm beyond this world's physical boundaries. The flickering candlelight dancing across the walls casts eerie shadows on his face, making it seem as if he is communing with specters. "What are you seeing, boy?" I ask gently, my voice barely above a whisper, lest we disturb whatever mysteries he is unraveling. Urindor's gaze drifts back to me, and for an instant I glimpse something like trepidation in his eyes. "The village," he whispers, as if the very act of speaking it aloud might shatter some delicate thread that holds reality together. "Oh, it's different. Oh, different." That was all we knew about Urindor's affliction thus far, that he could perceive the world in ways both wondrous and unsettling to those who did not share his gift. "Tell me, boy," I coax him on, sensing that there is more to this enigmatic statement. "What do you mean by different?" Urindor takes a deep breath before launching into an account of what he sees. The walls surrounding our village are translucent, like they're constructed from some ethereal material that filters in visions from other realms, or perhaps reflects them back upon us like a gilded mirror. I frown at this description. Walls made of glass. It sounds like the ravings of a madman, yet Urindor's words carry an air of sincerity I've come to trust during our numerous sessions together. Brother Edwin sets aside his book and leans in, his eyes aglow with curiosity. "Tell me more about these visions," he says softly, as if coaxing a reluctant confession from the boy. Urindor hesitates before beginning to recount another series of revelations. that every stone and mortar within our village's walls serves as a window into realms both wondrous and terrifying, worlds where creatures lurk beyond our mortal comprehension. Where dreams bleed into reality like ink on parchment, leaving behind only faint impressions for us to decipher. As I listen, the air seems to thicken around me, heavy with an unspoken weight that speaks of secrets too great for human minds to grasp. The room grows darker, as if night itself has descended within these walls. I've spent years treating ailments born from dust and disease, but Urandor's gift. It redefines the very notion of health in a world where mysteries lurk around every corner, waiting to pounce upon us like predators. The more we learn about his condition, the more I realize how little we truly understand. Brother Edwin scribbles furious notes on a parchment as Urandor speaks, his face alight with an intensity that borders on reverence. "We have so much work ahead of us," he says to me, his voice barely audible over the beating of my own heart. I glance back at our patient and find him staring past me now, lost once more in whatever realms it is he sees beyond this world's veil. His eyes are like two pools reflecting moonlight on a still night, unblinking, unfathomable, yet filled with an otherworldly understanding that makes my skin prickle. With Urandor at the center of our investigation, we find ourselves hurtling toward answers both wondrous and terrifying, and I'm not certain which will ultimately prove more devastating to us all. Tonight you've traveled through the mist-shrouded streets of medieval Europe, where shadows danced with the whispers of forgotten convents and distant fires cast an eerie glow on crumbling facades. A pungent aroma wafted from the apothecary's shop, carrying with it secrets of preservation and decay. In a grand hall, hidden fumigation chambers whispered their mysteries to those who listened closely, while in another corner, a physician struggled to diagnose a mysterious illness that seemed to defy explanation. But what connected these disparate threads was a deeper understanding, one that spoke to the fragility and resilience of human life amidst the ravages of disease. It was a thread that wove together the lives of patients and healers, each with their own stories and struggles, yet bound by a shared quest for survival and meaning. If you'd like to keep exploring this tapestry of tales, you can gently tap like and subscribe so you don't miss the next journey. And if you feel awake enough, leave a comment and share where in the world you're listening from. Perhaps it's on a moonlit rooftop or by a crackling fireplace. As the last wisps of memory fade into the darkness, let go of the scent of old parchment, the rustle of herbal remedies, and the whispers that echoed through abandoned halls. Allow yourself to sink beneath the surface of thought, where the quiet and the stillness reign supreme. And as you surrender to the depths of sleep, remember that time is a patient gardener, tending to the garden of memory with an eternal gentleness. The earth's slow heartbeat echoes through eternity, a reminder that even in slumber we are never truly lost.